You're listening to That's Pretty Dark,
the podcast where we talk about all of the entertainment that scared us as children
and still haunts us as adults. So grab your flashlight and join us as we take a frightfully nostalgic look over our shoulders.
And under our beds.
And in our closets.
And together we'll realize, whoa, that's pretty dark.
That's pretty dark. Ooh, we're here to do it again. Last time I ended part one too early. I picked the wrong moment to transition from the production
We've all
story.
had moments where we finished a little too early, you know? That's okay.
Oh my God.
Happens to everyone, in the words of Rachel Green.
And it doesn't happen to everyone, to every guy. Oh my God.
At first she had to say it did to then let him know that it didn't. But yes.
Later.
We understand.
Yeah.
We understand.
So yeah, I picked the wrong moment. I feel really bad about it. I thought it was going to be a great, perfect spot to be like, yeah, Gary Kurtz is like, let's make this movie. Later, there's a perfect black moment in the production story. It was
a fade to black sort of idea.
Yeah, like a wonderful,
yeah,
perfectly handed to me on a silver platter cliffhanger that I should have used.
Drop the ball.
And we're going to get to it in this part 2 of Little Nemo Adventures in Slumberland. Welcome, everybody.
Welcome to part 2, and maybe some of what should have been part of part 1.
Yeah. But you're listening to That's Pretty Dark, and my name is Christian.
And my name is Kaylin. I have no idea why, but for a moment I thought you were about to say that your name was Kaylin.
Really? Because you usually say it first,
yeah.
So it probably just was
That's
rolling
why.
off the your drums there.
Memory.
Yeah.
My muscle memory was thrown off by that. Anyway.
And it's probably also because it's late 30 here on the Gulf Coast, and we need to go to sleep.
It is later than it needs to be. I'm going to be honest with y'all. I'm going to be real honest with y'all that Kaylin is not great at being a person late at night anymore. This is not due to my chemistry. This is just due to like a corporate job for the past almost decade.
Yeah, and I've been sick for a month, so I'm feeling awesome.
Hey.
Can't shake it.
You've
been sick since like September, so.
Yeah, I was about to say, we have that in common.
Since you were born.
Yeah, since I was born.
Yeah,
practically. I've had some good years in there, but yeah.
No.
Not recently.
The good years, they come and they've gone.
Mm-hmm. And so have these Little Nemo years.
Yeah.
They came.
Right.
A lot of them came.
They came, they
and
saw.
And then they went.
They conquered the night. Well, let's get to it. Let's conclude this story of Little Nemo.
Let's start off with the conclusion.
Just walking his little pajama feet through Slumberland, just, having him a fun little time. It's not as fun as you think.
Mm-mm.
It's not as fun as you think. And I have a lot of strong opinions about this, and I'm probably going to upset a lot of people.
I can't wait.
Hope I don't injure your childhood memories, but.
I love how I'll be the one on the front lines of the Instagram going, no, but really, though, it's okay because.
Nah, we'll see if people agree. And you may or may not agree with me. And if you don't, that's okay. Where we left off last time with this production story, Yutaka Fujioka nearly had his dreams crushed by George Lucas, who pointed him in the direction of Gary Kurtz, who said, let's do it. So Kurtz and Fujioka became executive producers and publicly announced a joint venture between their two studios, Kurtz's Kinito and Fujioka's TMS, forming Kinito TMS. The deal was for Fujioka to manage more of the business side of things, like the logistics, the budget, the animation, and Kurtz would handle more of the content, like the story, the plot, the script development, and all that kind of fun stuff.
The fun part.
The actual fun part. See, Kurtz had his own vision, and to realize that vision, he hired my man, Ray Bradbury, to completely rewrite Miyazaki's script.
It's still wild to me.
So crazy. And for those who don't know, Bradbury wrote Fahrenheit 451, Something Wicked This Way Comes, The Halloween Tree, which we're going to cover in October. And I also recently learned that he wrote the script treatment for It Came from Outer Space.
Wow.
I just randomly looked that up one day because I was curious to know about the origins of that story.
And you were pleased to find it was already one of your buddies.
Yeah, it was Ray. Old Ray. But even Bradbury wanted to give it his own twisted spin because he realized the name Nemo spelled backwards is the word omen. And in his script treatment, Bradbury wrote this summary. Nemo, guided by his own split personality, Omen, dives deep into the dream world, defeats Omen, and returns to the real world. So this is like a split personality thing.
I like that a lot, actually. It's a little bit Peter Pan.
Me too. And yeah, you're not wrong about that. Pretty intentional for some of these people. And for a time, this is the story, this is the plot with which they moved production forward. But this became a point of contention because Bradbury's idea officially established two opposing schools of thought regarding the handling of Nemo's reality versus his dream experience. But more on this in a bit. On the animation side of things, Fujioka brought in two of Disney's 9 old men, which we talked about when we covered, I think, Pinocchio, I believe. These were Frank Thomas and Ollie Johnston.
They worked together a lot.
They did, and these guys would consult and advise on the production from this point forward to help them produce what Fujioka called full animation in the Disney style. 12 of the staff members from Japan, including Miyazaki and Takahata, traveled to the US to learn Western animation from Thomas and Johnston. But when these two old men saw Miyazaki's sketches, I guess concept art for the film or something, one of them looked at Fujioka and said, "We have nothing to teach them."
Oh, respect. Mad respect.
Mad respect. I mean,
that's cool.
He's always had those chops. I mean, he always kind of had it. But all in all, they learned a lot about creative process and approach from these legends. And the core Japanese team traveled back and forth between the US and Japan to work alongside two other younger fellas who would, also become Disney legends in their own right eventually. These are Andy Gaskill and Roger Allers, whose names may or may not sound familiar. Andy Gaskill did production storyboards for Tron, and he was an art director for The Lion King. And speaking of The Lion King, Roger Allers was one of the directors of The Lion King.
Yeah, with Rob Minkoff, who we talked about when we talked about Brave Little Toaster, because he was a character designer.
Sounds right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just know his name.
We're going to have a lot of crossover with projects like this from this time period.
Okay. So, but wait, where are we in our timeline? Let's just get it straight. I know I always do that to you.
Well,
but I want to make sure that I'm thinking of it right.
This is
mid 80s, early 80s?
This is early 80s. This is still very early on. Yeah, they just got the green light from Gary Kurtz, essentially. So it's like 82, 83.
Yeah. Okay.
Somewhere in this ballpark.
Early 80s. And yeah, we already, we've been here before on That's Pretty Dark. So we know what was going on kind of in the animation community at that time.
Specifically, Roger Allers also was a story writer for Oliver and Company. So I don't know if he would have been mentioned, though, when we covered that, because there were so many. There were like 12 of them who worked on just the story alone.
Yeah, so there were a ton.
But on this project, Allers served as an animation director for 2 years. And I believe he actually went to Japan quite a bit. I think he lived there for a time to work in that studio with those guys. And I'm going to get to more of Gaskill's involvement in a bit because it's a bit more hands-on and involved.
Putting a pin in it.
Got pins and things all over the place.
Always.
Well, if we remember from part 1, like I said, Hayao Miyazaki of Studio Ghibli fame.
There you go.
Miyazaki himself says Ghibli.
But then why does everybody else on planet Earth say Ghibli?
Because it's an Italian word for a car, an Italian car, and they call it a Ghibli.
Oh, okay.
And there was a plane.
If we have the information, let's get that discourse going. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong.
There was a plane,
that's okay.
I think, named after the car. They called it Ghibli, and he was obsessed with planes. But he calls it with a hard j. I think that, I don't know if that's soft or hard, but the actual Japanese pronunciation is more like Ghibli.
Okay.
Studio Ghibli.
Okay.
But whatever. It doesn't matter.
I mean, it matters to me.
Studio Ghibli. Right. Hayao Miyazaki wrote the initial draft of the script that Fujioka pitched to American producers, which Miyazaki later turned into the first ever Studio Ghibli film, Laputa Castle in the Sky. This version established Slumberland as an alternate reality that, despite being a dream world, is just as real as the waking world. Bradbury's version had more of a psychological angle, where Nemo explores the depths of his own subconscious or unconscious. See, Miyazaki hated the idea of Nemo just being asleep for the entire movie. And this was a problem because Miyazaki was one of the two candidates alongside Isao Takahata for director. There would be two directors, one Japanese and one American. And Miyazaki believed a film that professes to be set in a dream world will only make the audience blank out. So
he was feeling like there wouldn't be stakes that would keep people engaged, maybe because it wouldn't be reality.
He said it wouldn't be an entertainment film. It wouldn't be entertaining. Yeah, he thought that people would lose interest because it was just a dream. It was an overused trope.
Because there were no stakes.
Which we've talked about this, right?
Yeah, if you know it's just a dream going in, you know there are no stakes.
And who knows what stakes Ray Bradbury would have introduced as part of the psychological, journey, because we don't know that information. We don't have this information.
And I'm pretty sure if anybody could handle creating stakes within a dream, it would be Ray Bradbury. Like,
right.
I'm not concerned about that, but
I agree.
It's 2024 and we're looking at it in 2024.
We've also seen things do this and well. Since this time period. But before this, I could see someone in this era go,
is that going to work?
That's overused. It's just not going to work. No one cares about this kind of stuff anymore. But this part cracked me up because Miyazaki, he believed so strongly in his stance that he basically wrote an essay about what makes a good movie. And he sent it to Gary Kurtz, hoping to sway the creative tides and change his mind on what Bradbury was bringing to the table.
Wow.
But Kurtz didn't listen, didn't care. Who knows if he even read it? Again, this is before Studio Ghibli, so Miyazaki hadn't made a name for himself yet. He was still a young animator at this time. But when this effort failed, Miyazaki turned back to Fujioka and desperately pitched multiple new ideas that, when rejected, Miyazaki again later repurposed into other films. One became Princess Mononoke, and the other became Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind.
Waste not, want not.
The truth is, this little Nemo production was Miyazaki's cocoon. And we have it to thank for his career, because he got so frustrated with nobody listening to him that he left telecom in November 1982 and went and opened his own animation studio, Studio Ghibli. And we asked the question last time, with Miyazaki on your side, how can you lose? Well, first you lose Miyazaki and then he becomes the competition.
Yeah, that is like right in the book on how to lose.
And Miyazaki also worked closely with John Lasseter of Pixar fame. Because of this movie, John Lasseter was one of many animation professionals who were drawn to this project and visited the Kineto TMS studio.
It was like a mecca of animation in the early 80s. Everybody was involved in it.
Yes, everybody wanted to see it. They wanted a piece of it.
Including some folks that we know.
Yes, others include Brad Bird, who went on to direct The Iron Giant, The Incredibles, and Ratatouille. Another is Jerry Reese, director of Brave Little Toaster. Bird and Reese actually worked together on this project for a month as animators, but they eventually left due to the overwhelming sense of disorganization and confusion. When they began to investigate why things weren't working very well, the animators said they were drawing what Bradbury was writing, and Bradbury said he was writing what they were drawing. So, I don't know. I have a feeling tensions were pretty high.
Yeah.
And nobody really wanted to take responsibility for it.
Yikes.
But there has to be a chain of command if this is going to work. And it seemed like nobody was in charge.
I mean, to create any kind of coherent, film, you have to know what's coming first down the pipeline. Or at least which way it's flowing.
Which way is the shit flowing? I want to be upstream.
And really, we haven't even reached the peak of the dysfunction of this production.
No, there are so many.
But we'll get there.
So many instances of it. It's hard to keep up with which one was the most dysfunctional. Another person of consequence who took interest in the project was French comics artist Moebius, who also went on to have a lasting friendship with Miyazaki. I don't know whether or not they ever collaborated, but at a glance it appears that they were at least mutually influenced by each other's work for a long time, or have been for a long time. And I also forgot to mention this last time, Miyazaki got a start in manga, in Japanese comics. And I just feel like that says a lot with him coming onto the project because this film started as a comic strip.
Right.
So I just think it's really interesting. And then Moebius, this famous French comic strip artist, is also getting involved from an artistic and story perspective. Moebius is a pseudonym of Jean Giraud, who was considered one of the most influential artists in the French-Belgian comics tradition, which is also known as the Franco-Belgian bande dessinée. If you pay attention to the title credits, you would have seen the name a couple times for story by and conceptual design, which he also did for a few other films, including Alien, Tron, and one of my all-time favorites, The Fifth Element. Well, after Miyazaki left, Takahata was officially the Japanese director. He initially tried to mold the story into something like Peter Pan meets Where the Wild Things Are, which I think makes a lot of sense for this concept. Mm-hmm. Like you said earlier, it sounds like Peter Pan.
And the duality of Nemo and Omen, I wish they had, pursued that.
I think it could be a really cool updated. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a second, but I like it a lot.
I think that's smart.
But Takahata eventually butted heads with Gary Kurtz and also left Telecom in March of 1983 over creative differences, of course.
You really got to watch out for those creative differences.
You got to, especially when this guy goes and joins Miyazaki and they both found Studio Ghibli.
Really fumbled the bag there.
Yeah.
Not going to lie.
And similar to Miyazaki, Takahata had unused ideas from this period, which he repurposed for his two films, Grave of the Fireflies and Only Yesterday.
That one hurts.
Yes.
I haven't even seen it. I've just heard how painful it is.
Yeah.
I've been instructed not to watch it, actually.
You specifically.
Yeah.
You don't get to watch this
movie.
You
should not watch this movie.
Sounds like something we should cover.
It does. It is, frankly. But
add it to our list.
Who knows if I would be able to survive it.
So, our guy, Andy Gaskill, and animator Yoshifumi Kondo were then hired as the American and Japanese directing duo. And together, these guys actually made a proof of concept animated short film based on some of Bradbury's writings.
Wow.
Featuring the character Omen luring Nemo into Slumberland. And it looks really good.
Does it, it exists? It's out there?
Yes, I've seen it.
Wow.
At least a piece of it. But yeah, to me, this is the winning combination. There were a few of these short pieces that served as test films and proofs of concept. But this one, Gaskill, Kondo, directing Bradbury's writing, I mourn the loss of this movie.
Well, now I do too.
It makes me so sad that it was never made and that these guys eventually left the production. This is the movie that should have been made. It looks better than the movie that ended up being made.
Wow.
Just visually stunning.
In the words of Taylor Swift, the greatest films of all time were never made.
Yeah. And honestly, I'm pretty familiar with Bradbury's writing style, even his screenwriting for kids' movies.
You spent a lot of time already with Halloween Tree.
The Halloween Tree specifically. It feels a lot like that movie, but the animation was so beautiful. The way that they depicted everything. I'm going to send it to you.
We're all going to have to go look it up. You know this, right? This is going to happen now. We're sending our darklings into the interweb.
There's a version on YouTube that's a lower quality. If it doesn't look great, go find another one. There are multiple out there.
Okay.
The one that's clear and is good quality, man, that's sharp. It looks nice. It's really nice.
What keywords do people need to search to find this?
Look for Slumberland pilot films, Slumberland test films,
or,
Little Nemo, Slumberland proof of concept, whatever. Something, I forget what I looked for specifically, but
hopefully that gets you guys there.
I think the titles all say pilot films. And they're compilations because, like I said, there were multiple. One was made solely by Kondo himself, based on storyboards drawn by Kazuhide Tomonaga, under the direction of Isao Takahata when he was the director. So he was trying to revive an old concept, essentially. Another was made by anime director and screenwriter Osamu Dezaki, but he also bowed out before moving forward with a feature.
Man.
And like I said, Gaskill and Kondo also left. And when none of the obvious choices for director worked out, the film entered a hiatus period for a couple years. And before a new director could be selected, production funds ran out in 1984, which is consequently when Gary Kurtz said, I'm a head out.
Yeah.
And because he was hired by Gary Kurtz, this is also when Ray Bradbury called it quits. And the production lost its writer.
Yeah, that hurts.
And this is where I should have ended part one, on the cliffhanger.
We all know what it would have felt like now. You all can agree this was probably the better spot, right?
I really messed this up, and I feel really bad about it. And I hope you can all forgive me.
Oh my God.
I'm going to try to get some sleep tonight and stop hating myself. So
it's okay.
Now, with no writer, Fujioka did something very similar to Disney when they needed a new ending to Watcher in the Woods. Fujioka commissioned a bunch of different writers to come up with their own version of this movie, some of whom wrote entire screenplays that were scrapped. These writers include Mobius, John Canemaker. Yes, it is Canemaker, confirmed.
I'm glad you checked.
His real name is John Cannizzaro Jr.
Well, then why was it a question? I am okay.
I didn't know his real name was Cannizzaro. Canemaker. But also Richard Oughton and Chris Columbus, who wrote The Goonies.
Been waiting for this one.
Yeah, we talked about him a couple years ago in our Goonies series.
A couple years ago. Painful.
Did I say a couple years ago?
You did, and it was a couple years ago.
It was a couple years ago.
You're right. It's just still stunning to me.
It's like, what did I say? And we will talk about him again this December when we cover Gremlins. Mm-hmm. And probably another December in the future when we cover Home Alone. This guy's just great. He's done a lot of wonderful things.
He's one of your favorites.
He really is. As I understand it, Columbus wrote the treatment/outline that would inevitably be scripted by Richard Oughton. And that's how both of these guys are credited with writing the official script. I wouldn't be surprised if Columbus came back over and polished things. Mm-hmm. Either way, they're both the writers. Richard Oughton went on to write the screenplay for Pet Sematary 2. Spielberg hired him to do rewrites for Gremlins 2. And although he didn't receive credit for the rewrites, it did earn him a multi-year writing deal with Warner Brothers, which is probably what led to the Pet Sematary thing. But during this period, he also wrote a sequel to Goonies, which was never produced, of course. But he once wrote an original screenplay called Mysterious Travels. This was eventually acquired by Walden Media and New Line Cinema, who hired him to rework the script to serve as the 3D sequel to Journey to the Center of the Earth.
Oh.
The script title became Journey to the Mysterious Island, and it starred Michael Caine, Dwayne The Rock Johnson.
Get it right.
Vanessa Hudgens, John Hutcherson, who's the dude from Hunger Games.
Josh Hutcherson.
And it grossed $335 million. So Richard's doing all right.
He's okay.
He's doing just fine.
The kids are all right.
Anyway, back to the story. When TMS had another influx of cash, probably thanks to the involvement of Chris Columbus, production moved forward with Fujioka at the helm. He founded Los Angeles TMS and he hired his directors. The Japanese director was Masami Hara, who had experience with full animation, including directing 52 episodes of an anime called Hans Christian Andersen.
Oh.
Oh.
I feel like I've said that over and I'm like, oh.
It's just cool stuff.
It's genuinely surprising me.
Yeah, honestly. It sounds really cool. Like it's this, these kids have to venture into fairy tales to try to fix the endings, to make them less f***ed up.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, they go in and try to make them nicer.
Wow.
It's pretty cool.
I mean, yeah, I'm into it.
The American director was William T. Hertz, who was recommended by those two old men, Thomas and Johnston, because of his work directing 91 episodes of Peabody's Improbable History and 163 episodes of Rocky and Bullwinkle. Thomas and Johnston also helped secure a few other Disney animation legends, including Ken Anderson, who I believe we discussed during our Pinocchio series.
Yeah, Pinocchio.
Which, how old are these guys at this point?
Well, they're old men.
Yeah.
It was the 30s when they were coming into power.
A lot like Hitler.
Well, that is the only thing they have in common, one would hope.
Walt Disney was not a Nazi.
Oh, I knew that was coming. Oh.
Not.
I can't go there.
But there is a character in this movie who is.
Oh.
I'll get to it.
Again.
Oh.
And that was a disappointed oh.
It's very sad, I know. John Canemaker stayed on for visual development alongside others, such as Brian Froud, who also did concept art for Labyrinth.
Hey.
And The Dark Crystal.
We know those names.
I think this explains a lot about Nightmare Land, like the layout and some of the style of the characters.
I was definitely feeling that as I watched. That's
the vibe I get there.
But again, Labyrinth is so core to my personality. It's it shaped me as a person. So I feel like I see it or I look for it in other things very often.
The film was completed a year later in 1988 and released in Japan on July 15th, 1989, distributed by Tohotoa. But the English dub that we're all familiar with wasn't released until 3 years later, on Kaylin's literal date of birth.
Yes.
August 21st, 1992. distributed by Hemdale. Now, I don't know why it took 3 years. I couldn't really find any information on anything that happened after
the Lost Years.
The Lost Years. I know that I think I know that they had to cast voice actors for the English dub. I don't know which came first, the English or the Japanese. But since they released in 3 years earlier, I would assume the Japanese version was finished first.
Yeah.
But I'm sure this was a whole process of casting these actors and getting everybody involved. But again, I could find no information on this. So yeah, The Lost Years. But 2, in order to secure the family-friendly rating of G, roughly 10 to 11 minutes of the movie had to be cut to appease the Motion Picture Association of America.
Now we're getting to it. Now we're getting there.
But never fear, you English speakers. If you're watching any of the multiple DVD releases, or watching on Prime Video, or you're watching the full movie version on the TMS official YouTube channel, then you're getting all unrated, raw, uncut 95 minutes of this movie.
Actually?
Yeah, for real. For real.
The stuff they cut is in the English version.
Oh. Yes. If you watch the VHS version, no.
Gotcha.
But if you watch anything from the DVDs to now,
they put it back in and said, screw you.
They did.
MPAA.
They really did. But it's listed as unrated, so it's not G. They can't officially do that.
Right. Their goal at the time was to secure that G rating for its release, and they did that.
Right. They did. They tried a few things that I didn't know about because the internet doesn't know this. But David, our friend David Stephen Cohen, reached out to give us a little bit of information.
Yes.
About something really weird that happened.
Very strange from a production standpoint.
Would you like to deliver this information?
In this, potentially, I'm assuming, in this time when it was just kind of in flux between what was going to end up being released, David told us that he and Roger, who you guys heard from just recently on our show, they worked together and they were charged with coming up with an entirely new script using the original animation. So the original animation is completed with the original script, presumably.
They had to watch the movie.
And at some point in this, they had to watch the movie and write a new script for what had already been animated.
It makes no sense.
David said that he didn't recall how far they actually got in the process, and he doesn't think that anything that they contributed ended up on screen. But they were working with a friend of theirs that was a producer, and David said, I think they shelved the whole idea of re-scripting the visuals when someone realized what a ridiculous idea it was.
So ridiculous.
That's unheard of, I would think.
No. That would be so hard to do.
He said, however, it was an interesting artistic and mathematical challenge. And just the idea that the math that you would have to do, the timing, the timing you'd have to take between, the comments would have to match, you know what I mean? Like,
it's nuts. I don't know.
I don't know how you do that. I greatly admire David and Roger for, even giving that a shot.
I could see giving it to a new editor.
Feels very visionary, very innovative, but they were really pulling out all the stops to get something
super nuts
out. They wanted to make this movie, and it took this many years. But again, I don't know exactly at what point in the process that happened. So just at some point after the animation had been completed.
That's so funny. That's so nuts.
What a weird journey that this whole movie.
If it's any indicator about how disjointed and screwed up and lost this movie was for such a long time, they tried to order a rewrite of a movie that was already completed.
That's wild to me.
Bonkers. Well, now that we're here, what better place to start than the beginning? With that colorful,
very good place to start.
That colorful yet bland title sequence and the sugary sweet musical number, Little Nemo.
I didn't know what I was watching.
Sung by Melissa Manchester, who is not an artist that I'm familiar with, but she did write songs for both Lady and the Tramp 2 and The Great Mouse Detective, for which she also provided the voice of Miss Kitty Mouse.
Nice.
And she sang a second song in this movie, the one called Slumberland. Didn't know what I was watching either. I will say, if I was ever given the option to watch this as a kid and that was the beginning of the movie, I would have turned it off. Just honestly. I find that kind of intro super unappealing. There are a few movies that we've watched that begin with just words and music. And it's so boring.
It depends for me. It really depends on the song.
So boring.
And when you're talking about the voice of Miss Kitty Mouse, that is more intriguing to me. She's the Let Me Be Good to You of Great Mouse Detective. I mean, that's iconic. So
it's better. But, you don't know that as a kid. And I was bored as an adult. I was like, can I please fast forward? But I was trying to read the credits and make sure I had all the names right. So, I couldn't do that. Melissa's 2 songs are 2 of the 5 original songs written for this film by the famous, ever-talented Sherman Brothers. We don't really dive into the other songs, but their names are Slumberland Princess, sung by Laura Mooney, the voice of Princess Camille. Etiquette, sung by Gabriel Damon, Renee Aubergenois, Kathleen Freeman, Michael Sheehan, June Foray, Greg Berger, and the chorus. And lastly, the Boomps song. Sung by the voices.
These just threw me off. I know. I love a musical, but by golly,
it's
they surprised me.
It's worse than All Dogs.
Hey, some of the songs in All Dogs are good.
But before we get away from it, the Boomps song, sung by the voices of 4 the Boomps: Neil Ross, Alan Oppenheimer, Sidney Miller, and Michael Bell. And just so I don't forget later, the voice of the 5th Boomp is John Stevenson, who also voiced the dirigible captain.
Boomp is really hard to say.
Boomp. Especially when you're trying, fitting it into a sentence, you're trying to be articulate.
Shoop-ba-doop. That's what I want to do. I don't know.
You can do that. That's your prerogative. Shoop-ba-doop-ba-doop. When it comes to the careers of the Sherman Brothers, Kaylin has a few kind words.
Oh, I do, because the Sherman Brothers are so near and dear to my heart, and I was thrilled to see that they were involved with this project because I feel like they've just been a part of my life for such a long time.
Yeah.
If you are unfamiliar or unaware, the Sherman Brothers were an American songwriting duo, brothers, that specialized in musical films, made up of brothers Robert B. Sherman, who passed away, unfortunately, in 2012, and Richard M. Sherman, who is still with us.
Do you think he feels like vindicated, like, I always knew I was the better brother?
I don't think so.
I beat you.
I'm sure he...
I finally won.
Let's see. I want to see if he's doing anything without his bro.
I wonder how it feels to be in like a sibling duo that changed the course of American history just with music.
I know. They're amazing.
I can't imagine.
Richard has gone on working since Robert's death.
Oh, as the Sherman brother?
Yeah, as the Sherman brother. He's consulting on things like the live-action Jungle Book in 2013.
Cool.
They did a London musical about them called A Spoonful of Sherman. And it was written, produced, and hosted by Richard's nephew, Robert J. Sherman.
No.
Apparently amazing.
The visuals I'm getting right now are just awful.
They were awarded the Diane Disney Miller Lifetime Achievement Award by the Walt Disney Family Museum. Like, these guys are the real deal.
That's fair.
And I was excited to learn that the Sherman Brothers wrote more motion picture musical song scores than any other songwriting team in film history.
I believe that, yeah.
Their work includes the live-action films The Parent Trap from 1961, one of my favorites, Mary Poppins from 1964, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, and Bedknobs and Broomsticks. And one of my very favorite live-action films, Tom Sawyer from 1973.
Oh, no way.
I love that musical.
That's cool.
They also worked on the animated films, The Sword and the Stone, The Jungle Book, except for The Bare Necessities. That was written by someone else. Charlotte's Web, The Aristocats, The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh from 1977. And they also, which is my favorite part of the Sherman Brothers story, worked on some theme park songs, including There's a Great Big Beautiful Tomorrow from the Carousel of Progress, which I worked on and very lovingly. That song will never, it will never get old to me because it reminds me so much of that time in my life. And tomorrow is just a dream away. Man has a dream, and that's the start. You guys can just go on here. I like that you know it. I really appreciate that you know it.
That's the part that you always hear as you're like trying to walk off the ride. It's like, it just goes on and on, and it never ends. They keep singing.
It's great, though. I love that song.
I do love it. It's nostalgic.
The Carousel of Progress is very important to me, and I think it was very important to them and to Walt because it's showing how humanity perseveres over time, how humanity improves over time, the spirit of discovery, the spirit of growth and achievement and all of those things just as as people, you know?
I guess he really believed in the human race, which is something I don't have.
I know, and I really don't as much either.
I don't have a lot of faith in it.
But you can hear it in that song, in A Great Big Beautiful Tomorrow.
It's nice. Yeah.
We also have to give them credit where credit is due for the song It's a Small World After All. And that's one that's a little more grating.
The lesser of the two.
In my life, it is.
I officially curse the Sherman Brothers.
According to Time magazine, It's a Small World After All is the most performed song of all time.
That doesn't make any sense.
I'm just telling you what I read.
How is it not Happy Birthday?
I know, right? I mean, I probably can't quantify Happy Birthday.
I think I realized they existed as human beings when I watched that movie about the making of Mary Poppins.
Yeah.
The woman who wrote it and everything.
Saving Mr. Banks.
Saving Mr. Banks. Yeah.
They were featured, I guess, in that.
I was like, oh, of course, human beings wrote all these Disney songs.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's just those things don't really click when you don't think about it.
I think even if you don't know they were the Sherman Brothers, you absolutely know their work. You know it when you hear it, sort of. It's kind of it's their style. And I do think that it's present in this film. For better or for worse in some cases. Not everything, not every song that you write can be a spoonful of sugar.
Yeah. That's pretty clear by this movie. I was disappointed in the Sherman Bros, but what are you going to do?
Well, hey, now that we know so much more about the production, I don't feel as bad about it because they were probably just tossed with the winds.
They probably didn't have much to work with.
I don't know that they were in an environment that really was conducive to their best work.
And you know what? They probably wouldn't have done it at all if Thomas and Johnston hadn't been like, hey, guys, we're working on this cool new movie. It's going to be a really big deal. You guys should come on. I bet they had some sway.
I'm sure.
I wouldn't be surprised.
I think they did what they could with what they had.
Which wasn't much.
Like, it seems everyone on this film.
Again, guys, not everything has to be a musical. Just make a movie.
Don't tell that to the Sherman Brothers.
No, just don't hire the Sherman Brothers. Just as a filmmaker, as a producer, as a director, you don't need to make your animated film a musical.
Or you can.
It was only a musical because Fujioka wanted to make a Disney movie.
Right.
So badly.
Mm-hmm.
So badly.
I get that.
You know what? It would have been so much better without the music.
I don't know.
But that's my opinion.
I don't think the music was the greatest thing I've ever heard, but I still think that it overall improved the film in my enjoyment of it.
What do you guys think?
But we, as you know, Darklings, Christian and I are different people.
We are.
With different opinions sometimes.
I don't love a musical. I love a good musical, but I don't just love a musical for musical's sake. Caitlin just loves music. She'll just take it wherever she can get it.
I will. I'll take it however I can get it.
Yeah, that's what she said. So. But the other music, I don't mind the score.
It's nice. It's fine.
Which came from a music composition powerhouse duo, another one, Thomas Chase and Steve Rucker. These soundtrack composers both had extensive careers, and it looks like they worked together on most of their most successful projects. You can tell how quickly I was trying to finish these notes, using most twice in the same sentence. Together, they composed just so many episodes of Bionic 6, Alvin and the Chipmunks, Adventures of the Gummy Bears, The Real Ghostbusters, The Pirates of Darkwater, Captain Planet and the Planeteers. They both composed a few episodes for What a Cartoon and Oh Yeah, Cartoons. What a Cartoon! And they wound up composing dozens and dozens of episodes of Dexter's Lab, Powerpuff Girls, and Codename Kids Next Door.
Dee Dee.
Dee Dee.
Dee Dee.
Get out of my laboratory. I can never do a Dexter voice.
That was not bad.
Yeah, that's fine. These guys also composed all 13 episodes of something called Visionaries, Knights of the Magical Light, which is a credit that numerous voice actors and artists on this movie share. And I've never seen it, but it seems to have been a pretty cool little thing, especially since it also starred the vocal talents of Jim Cummings.
Oh.
There are only 13 episodes.
Oh.
And I want to watch it and know what it's all about.
We'll have to go find it.
It looks cool. I don't know. If you guys have seen it, tell us if it's any good.
Let us know.
Somebody out there's seen it.
DMs are open.
So when the film opens, just like Winsor McCay's comic strip, Nemo is asleep in his bed. The room is filled with adventurous little boy things. Aircraft toys hang from the ceiling, a biplane, a dirigible. Toys begin to come alive as Nemo's bed lifts off the floor and glides out the window to soar through town.
I'm really coming.
And I like that he can steer it, you know?
That's how I would imagine it happening when I was little.
For sure. That was really well conveyed through the animation, I think. And I also like the hint of darkness and danger that's just suggested at with the train in the shadows. It's sudden, jarring. There's this flash of light and a loud shift in tone, in the tone of the dream, that makes Nemo feel just unsafe enough to question what's happening.
And it made me feel just unsafe enough, and it reminded me how quickly a good dream can turn into a nightmare.
Can go bad, right?
Happens to me all the time.
But he questions this for just a brief moment, and then he keeps having fun on the flying bed, forgetting about the darkness until it finds him again in those tunnels beneath the abandoned city. I wonder if all those dilapidated buildings were in the original comics somewhere, because they also appeared in at least one of the proofs of concept films. So I'm sure they were a fixture of the concept art and like the storyboarding from an early point.
Probably like, how do we convey that this is the tone is shifted?
Yeah.
How do we make that clear in the environment?
I just kind of want to know where that originated. It's a pretty cool concept.
And I think we were probably all dreaming of train tracks. In the 80s and 90s, I guess, because of the Looney Tunes.
I guess so. I don't know that I ever did, but
I don't know. But there are train tracks in everything.
Yeah, trains used to be a bigger deal for everybody.
Yeah.
Go listen to our haunted train episode.
I was just going to say, we talked about them a lot.
We're going to again. We have an Are You Afraid of the Dark episode all about trains. In either season 2 or 3, something like that. I forget.
Soon, I would say.
I want to emphasize a few of the elements of this dream. I want to hang out here for a minute because I looked into some dream analysis that might help us understand Nemo's state of mind at the beginning of this story, which for all intents and purposes might explain why he's the perfect candidate for such an adventure.
What kind of a city is this?
Nemo explores the abandoned, flooded city. Then he spots a large clock tower where time appears to pass quickly, but in sudden spurts, dropping the bed a little more each time passing instant. According to the National Institutes of Health, when it comes to a clock that's out of control, which I think is what's being depicted here, it symbolizes fears and anxieties that have not been confronted and are therefore unresolved. Like I said, he's dropping a little more every instant the clock hands, change time. And he finally plunges into the depths of the waters below, further and further until he's being chased by the locomotive in the underground tunnel, breaking all kinds of physics in the process. According to Dream App,
sounds very official.
I'm sure this would not be projected for a school essay by your teacher as an inadequate source.
Dreaming of being underwater symbolizes your emotions and subconscious mind. It may indicate that you're feeling overwhelmed or suffocated by your emotions. It can also represent a desire for a deeper understanding of yourself and your innermost thoughts. I have had those dreams.
In Dream Bible, another reliable source says,
to dream of being underwater represents being overwhelmed by negative thoughts, emotions, or uncertainty. It may also reflect preoccupation with sadness, guilt, or fear. To dream of breathing underwater reflects a level head or intelligence while confronting negative emotions or facing stressful or uncertain situations. So I guess a key difference here is breathing underwater.
Yeah, I mean, it's both. It's like you have water in your dream and then you're underwater, but then there's another layer to it that if you're breathing underwater, it means that
you're handling it.
You're handling it, or you have enough like self-confidence or self-assurance that you feel like you can navigate it and be okay.
Mm-hmm. I get that. I can also tell that Dream App was going out of its way not to...
Yeah. How would you put it? Like it's...
they were definitely towing the line. They wanted it to be more of an affirmation than anything else. They didn't want to bring any negativity into the picture.
An article on Forbes Health says that according to a few studies, the two most common recurring dreams people have is falling and or being chased.
Mm-hmm.
So it's cool that Nemo experiences both of these things in the opening dream of the movie. One certified dream analyst named Laurie Lowenberg says falling dreams may be the result of some kind of letdown or disappointment. She says, quoting, "It can also happen when we feel we have no support." And according to Healthline.com, dreams about falling may reflect feelings of inadequacy or a sense that your life is out of control.
If you darklings are out there reflecting on your last few nights weeks, months of dreaming, and you're suddenly a little bit uncomfortable, just know I'm right there with you.
Yeah. I've been doing some self-reflection, some
I've been
self-dream analysis.
I've been doing some falling in my dreams. Yeah, that happens to me a lot.
But let this remind you that you're never really alone, because these are such common dreams that there are whole studies about it, and everybody has the same dreams. So
that's right.
We're all doing this thing together. We're all falling.
We are all
being
falling.
Chased together. But if we're all being chased, who's chasing us?
It's a great question.
That's a scary thing. 2, I put in quotes, authorities on dreams, Carl Jung and Sigmund Freud, had very different opinions on falling dreams. Jung thought that they may be the result of having too high an opinion of oneself, while Freud believed they represented giving into one's own sexual temptations.
Oh.
I'm not trying to think too much about Freud's influence on McKay's Little Nemo comic strip.
Probably not.
But like we talked about last time, there was kind of a direct influence on a lot of
Winsor McKay's work.
Yeah. Yeah, potentially, or at least in people's approach to dream analysis, which is why he was so popular, potentially so popular in the first place. So I'm hoping he wasn't directly affected too much by giving Little Nemo too many falling dreams.
Really exposing myself here, y'all. I love how I'm I have a lot of falling dreams, and then that's the next commentary.
I didn't think about that. No, yeah. Hey, look, we all have falling dreams, all right?
What was the first one you said?
Maybe the result of having too high an opinion of oneself from Carl Jung.
I can tell you, in my case, that Carl Jung is entirely incorrect, and I'm not sure what Freud's doing up there right now, but...
You think Freud's in heaven?
No, I meant up in my brain.
Oh, I don't know.
But maybe if there is a heaven, I don't know. I don't know where Freud would go.
It's like when Nick Miller...
He tried so hard.
It's like when Nick Miller points upward, he's talking to his mom, and Schmidt's like, why are you pointing up? Your mom's alive. He's like, pointing up, Chicago. Chicago is up.
Yeah. Mother dear, oh, we know you're down there listening.
Now stick with me, guys. I'm building up to a point here. I'm building up to a point. Lowenberg says that those who struggle with avoidance or procrastination will have dreams about being chased and or running away from something. She says, people who tend to avoid confrontation at all costs have this dream a lot. That explains my up head, because I have avoidance tendencies, bordering on an avoidance disorder. You might say.
You notice how Kaylin is quiet.
Yeah, she's quiet.
Too quiet.
Stay quiet. We're moving forward. A sleep psychologist named Dan Ford says, dreaming about being chased could also come from a feeling of intense anxiety experienced during the day. But he goes on to say, scientists have speculated the prevalence of this dream could be evolutionary and confer a survival advantage. Or, as the writer of this article, this Forbes Health article says, in other words, dreams about being chased could be a kind of practice of escaping from predators.
Sure.
Put a pin in that.
Whether the predators are lions, tigers, bears, or deadlines.
Oh my. So, like I said, and this is the point I'm building up to use this opening dream as a telltale psychological breakdown of Nemo as a character, taking into account everything these dream experts believe. Nemo is just a normal kid, with an overactive imagination and a strong sense of adventure and wonder that ultimately leaves him dissatisfied with the world around him. He also feels dismissed and or ignored by his parents, as evidenced by his mother ignoring him in the dream, which is so creepy.
It's so creepy. It's like I was saying in part 1. I was so afraid for her to turn around.
I know.
I had no idea what was coming. But it's equally scary that she doesn't,
Right.
She's not there. She's absent.
Therefore, his wild and vivid dreams are a natural escape for him. He feels so inadequate and alone in the real world that his only true companion is a pet flying squirrel that he pretends he can talk to.
Pet flying squirrel? Baby Kaylin is sold on that. Sold.
No, I agree.
She loves it. She would have wanted her very own Icarus.
And not only that, but he's also on the cusp of puberty, leaving him with complicated but exciting yet scary feelings about girls, which we get a much better sense of when he's invited to Slumberland to be the friend of a girl.
Mm-hmm.
So Nemo needs a friend, and he's starting to think maybe it wouldn't be so bad if it was a girl after all, and he's beginning to make a little sense of the things he's garnered about damsels and princesses from storybooks and fairy tales, so he probably likes the idea of being a prince or adventurer who will be summoned to a faraway land to defeat some dark beast in the name of honor and chivalry.
This is all about him wanting to get the girl.
Beginning to understand wanting to get the girl.
Mm-hmm.
I think, and I'm saying that's what the filmmakers are doing.
Mm-hmm.
So, this is just a observation on
As
my
is
part.
Everything that we say for the most part.
I think that's kind of what they were going for. This is Nemo in a nutshell, his psychology in a nutshell, where he's at as a 10, 11-year-old boy. Who knows how old he is?
I don't know. I saw him as younger, but you're probably right.
I thought he was younger until I saw what they were doing with the themes.
Mm-hmm.
And I began to overanalyze for the sake of this episode.
Right.
And I think he absolutely has anxiety, like we all did as kids, resulting from a lack of control over our own lives. Deep down, he believes he is a genuine hero deserving of a grand adventure. So he likely fears having an actual confrontation that would challenge his own juvenile view of himself. But in that same vein, I think the survival advantage aspect of, dreams about being chased is super interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he knows deep down that when he finally has his grand adventure, he's going to have to confront some kind of terrifying creature or a monster that might very well get the upper hand if he isn't actually up to the task.
Mm-hmm.
It's like his unconscious is training him for the inevitable, on like an evolutionary standpoint.
Interesting.
That's just kind of where I think he's at in his complicated little boy life, going through some changes and feeling alone and scared. And I remember being that way.
I wasn't going to say it, but I hoped that you would, just in the fact that you know how he felt.
Oddly enough, I'm identifying with Nemo quite a bit, thinking I was going to be the hero of some fantastic story. Mm-hmm. And then I grew up and turned 32 and realized that wasn't going to
Oh, you just realized it at 32? Just now?
About to be 33. About to be 33.
You've had a whole year with this knowledge.
That's what I was saying before the episode. I'm in my Jesus era. Mm-hmm. And the next year I'm going to be crucified.
Yeah, I told him I can't wait to see what happens AD.
I'm going to ascend to the heavens.
Yikes.
Keep going with the script. Stick to the script, you idiot.
No time to improvise.
But yeah, that's a lot of speculation and conjecture into what this dream sequence might mean. It may very well have just been, what are some common dreams that we can also pull from the comic strip? Oh yeah, cool. Let's have the bed fly through this abandoned city. He could be chased by a train. And then he falls out of bed.
It might
just
have
like
all
the
just
comics.
Happened around the board table, Elf the movie style.
Yes. I got a couple ideas in here. I'm just
psyched out of my mind about.
Tribe of Asparagus Children.
Peter Dinklage.
All right. So, yes.
Yes.
Nemo wakes from this dream. And he falls out of bed, just like in the comic strip.
Whew, just a dream.
His parents call him from the other room.
Nemo, are you all right?
Having bad dreams.
Oh, Nemo, have you been sneaking pies again?
Which becomes a running gag that implies Nemo has bad dreams when he sneaks downstairs for pie as a midnight snack.
Which may or may not have been the implication encouraged, by the way.
He does get that pie quite often.
Just saying.
I don't know if anything like this was mentioned in the comic strip, the Nemo comic strip. But if nothing else, it's a direct reference to the concept behind Rarebit Fiend.
Right.
People who eat something that gives them bad dreams.
Mm-hmm.
Nemo is voiced by Gabriel Damon, who got his start acting in the 80s and landed a pretty big role on a show called Call to Glory.
Nice.
He and his voice appeared in things like Punky Brewster, Different Strokes, Who's the Boss, Pound Puppies, RoboCop 2, Newsies, and Erie, Indiana.
You don't say.
I do say.
That's a whole lot of pretty dark stuff.
Oh, and by the way, he also voiced Littlefoot in The Land Before Time.
Wow. That's a big one.
You didn't see that coming, did you?
I really didn't see that coming. I purposefully did not look. I did not look it up.
I got some doozies in here.
That's one of them.
That's probably one of the most surprising ones, though. I'm not going to lie.
Are you shocked, Darklings? Because I am.
They're like, we already knew. You guys are dumb. And it's funny because it turns out he retired from acting after about 25 years and he now works in real estate.
Good for you.
That's just so odd to me. But you know what? Do what you want. Do whatever you want.
I mean, I'm sure it's very lucrative.
Just riding those Land Before Time royalties, though. Mm-hmm. Nemo's mom is voiced by Jennifer Darling, who voiced characters in 11 episodes of My Little Pony, 56 episodes of Bionic 6, 27 episodes of the 1980s Dungeons & Dragons, and 81 episodes of TMNT, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. She voiced Irma and Tiffany.
Nice.
And she also did all 13 episodes of that Visionaries Knights of the Magical Light.
And she's got a Peter Pan connection too, because her name's Darling.
Nemo's dad is voiced by Greg Burson, who also voiced Flap, the giant crow.
Oh.
Flip's giant crow Flap.
Flip and flap.
Flipping and flapping around.
Inseparable, those two.
He's most known for being one of the many successors of Mel Blanc and Dawes Butler, taking on the voices of characters like Bugs Bunny, Yogi Bear, Foghorn Leghorn, and Pepe Le Pew.
This guy's a professional. Get him in here.
He knows what he's doing. He did a ton of Scooby-Doo, new Tom and Jerry stuff, new Looney Tunes stuff like Animaniacs. He also voiced Mr. DNA in Jurassic Park. A lot of these voice actors worked on various Scooby-Doo installments. Snorks, the Smurfs. I want to point that out for each person, but I don't want to repeat it like 12 times. And speaking of things we might repeat, Icarus is voiced by Danny Mann, who Kaylin talked about during Balto because he voiced Caltag.
And he's from here, right?
Is he the guy who's from here?
Yeah, that's the one.
Gee whiz, a circus parade! Icarus! Come on, Icarus, let's go!
Boy, oh boy, the circus is in town. And to show off their glitz, glamour, and grandiosity, they have a parade.
A very, and this is my opinion, flat, one-dimensional parade.
Yeah.
It all felt like one color to me.
I'm with you. I'm with you.
Didn't draw me in like other parades we've seen.
Yeah, there wasn't much to it. It wasn't quite the old dancing live dinosaurs from We're Back.
No, we didn't roll back any rocks.
No, which is funny because this is...
No trips to the dawn of time.
I think this is technically New York. The suburbs of New York City, but supposed to be New York nonetheless. That's where Little Nemo is, based. We saw the Statue of Liberty at the end. Yeah.
Well,
it's New York.
Well.
Yeah, it falls short.
I'm sorry.
It falls short of the glory of Steve Spielberg. But when Nemo arrives at this one-dimensional parade with his pet flying squirrel, Icarus, we get the Wizard of Oz-esque trope of, and you were there, when a number of the Slumberland characters appear in the circus parade, albeit different from their dreamy counterparts. Among these few visible are Bon Bon, Professor Genius, Flip, who knocks him down, Princess Camille, who throws him a flower, and King Morpheus, who gives him a ride on his horse and calls him a delightful boy.
Well, have you liked it? It's great, right, Icarus?
I wrote in my notes, it feels sort of Wizard of Oz meets Candyland.
There you go. Yep, nailed it.
That's how it felt to me.
It's so, alluring that Nemo begs his dad to take him, to which he says,
"Maybe tomorrow, Nemo."
Oh, you always say tomorrow, Papa.
Oh, no, I'm late for a meeting. I'm sorry, but I have to go. Perhaps tomorrow, Nemo.
And when we actively see Nemo be denied, much like the beginning of Labyrinth, this is when the fantasy and the dreaming really take hold of this story.
Also, very good parallel. Yeah.
That night, Nemo is visited by Professor Genius and Bon Bon in his bedroom, who come in through the window to inform Nemo that his presence has been requested by King Morpheus.
His Serene Highness King Morpheus, the ruler of Slumberland and divine protector of everyone's good dream, and his daughter, Princess Camille, extend this invitation to little Nemo to visit our Slumberland and be the official playmate to Princess Camille.
Nemo doesn't want to go play with the girl until Bon Bon gives him the princess's gift of delicious treats from the royal bakery, going from, "I've never played with a girl before," to, "I love the princess. I love girls."
I wrote both of those things.
It's not too far off. It doesn't take much to kind of go, "Ooh."
Wait a second. Strike that. Reverse it. And these cookies reminded me of some other animated cookies.
Which ones?
I don't know. A lot of them. They felt familiar.
There's a lot to this movie that I was like, that reminds me of something, and I cannot think of what it is.
And do you think that was intentional on the part of the creators to make you do that the way that you do in a dream, like that deja vu sort of feeling that you're coming in and out of?
Or they were just trying so hard to make a super appealing movie that they just stole a bunch of Easter eggs from other movies.
Okay?
I don't. Yeah, you know what? Let's go with it.
No, I'm with you, but I'm trying here. Because I definitely spent the whole movie going, hey, but that feels kind of like something else.
Yeah. And here I was just thinking I was being like so smart and like, yeah, this is a reference to this and this is a reference to this. No, they were just stealing things and just repurposing them. That's the name of the game, isn't it?
In the 80s.
You know, like how Winsor McKay stole a French comic and turned it into an American comic. But, you know, whatever. Right. And once Nemo accepts the invitation, they're all conveyed to Slumberland via the king's personal dirigible. And that's how the adventure begins.
A dirigible? A real dirigible?
They said the word dirigible more than I've ever heard the word dirigible.
I want to say dirigible.
Me too.
And I want dirigible to be like an adjective.
Me too.
That describes something. I don't want it to be.
I'm like, yeah, that's what I thought as well.
You want a story or a character called the dirigible something.
And you want it to mean like degradable. Like, I don't know. That's like inimitable, but the opposite of inimitable. Like
something that feels very proud and pompous.
The opposite of inimitable to me would be dirigible.
Onomatopoeia, anonymity.
Anonymity.
What are you saying?
Inimitable, like I am inimitable. I am an original.
You're not
Hamilton. What's the?
You're not giving a definition. You're just saying the word over and over.
Hang on. I'm saying it correctly, by the way, according to dictionary.com.
Sure.
Inimitable means so good or unusual as to be impossible to copy or unique.
Oh, so it's like the inverse.
Dirigible is like a derivative of something, whereas inimitable is so good. I see them as opposites, and I see this word as something totally different.
I see like, dirigible.
I'm creating my own lore right now and my own entry on dictionary.com.
It's the inverse is that it's so bad it can't be copied.
Okay.
Or duplicated or whatever.
Or that. That's fine too.
So
but
appalling or unappealing.
It sounds like it would be derivative.
It sounds like a character that would be in a Phantom Tollbooth.
Yeah, it does, for sure.
I'll leave it at that.
For sure.
That's where I'm at right now.
Phantom Tollbooth takes me some other places.
Man, I cannot wait to cover that one day. Professor Genius is voiced by Renée Auberjonois, whose mother was a literal French princess, and whose Swiss-born father was a Pulitzer-nominated writer and Cold War-era foreign correspondent, according to IMDb.
I don't even know what you just said, but...
Yeah, play it back.
I'm impressed.
Guys, just go back 15 seconds and listen to me talk. His grandfather was also a renowned Swiss painter, so little Renée grew up in a very artistic and ambitious household.
We know how this guy got the job.
He knew by age 6 that he wanted to be an actor, specifically for, the stage. His first job was working in a theater at age 16, and by 19, if my math is correct, which is probably not, he won a Tony Award for his first ever role in a Broadway musical, Coco, in which he acted alongside Katharine Hepburn. And he most notably played the character Odo in 173 episodes of Star Trek Deep Space Nine. And just for us kids, he appeared in one episode of Erie, Indiana. But his voice acting career brought us Doctor Strange Snork and Snorks, the Skull in The Last Unicorn.
That's a big one.
Flanagan in Cats Don't Dance.
We're gonna be there soon.
But most importantly, Chef Louis in The Little Mermaid. Trying to cut up Sebastian the Crab and cook him for dinner.
Yeah.
Chef Louis.
That's a deep cut.
I love Chef Louis. Love me some Chef Louis. Bonbon is voiced by Sherry Lynn, who voiced Amber in The Spooktacular New Adventures of Casper, the Sandbox Kid in Rugrats, the mother in Toy Story 1, Barbie Girl in Toy Story 2, and both Mom's Disgust and Mom's Joy in Inside Out.
I'm Malibu Barbie.
And weirdly enough, she provided various children's voices for the 1999 The Haunting.
That is strange.
Which is, the remake from the 1960s, The Haunting.
Welcome to Slumberland, my boy.
When Nemo arrives in Slumberland, he is warmly welcomed by the citizens and subjects of the kingdom, all in their colorful and excitable splendor. They're so eager to see him, they're literally floating up in the sky with like hot air balloons and helium balloons with banners that say "Welcome Nemo" and all this stuff.
We represent
and it's a lot.
The Lollipop Guild.
Yes.
The Lollipop Guild.
So much.
The Lollipop Guild.
So much of The Wizard of Oz is in this movie. Both the movie and the books. And the way I see it, it's intentionally over the top to give Nemo surplus amounts of the things he's always wanted. To be seen, heard, loved, to feel special.
Mm-hmm.
But in excess, these things become praise, worship, obsession. And the purpose is to immediately convince Nemo to stay in Slumberland by making him never want to go home.
Mm-hmm.
It's really creepy.
There's definitely a sinister air.
This whole thing,
when you think about it,
gives me a weird vibe.
Your Majesty, by your royal invitation, it is my great honor to present to you Nemo.
When Nemo is presented to King Morpheus, the king is missing.
Oh, no, not again.
Also, very intentional on, the part of the king, because it's presented that he's basically a kid at heart who would rather play with toy trains and have fun than fulfill his royal duties. So when Flip leads Nemo astray the first time, and Nemo falls and falls and falls until he slides into the king's playroom, he finds King Morpheus playing with his hobby trains that are large enough to ride on, which of course they do.
got to.
This is to show Nemo that when you're king and you're in charge, you can simply choose to play the day away whenever you want and simply neglect your responsibilities. So the king is now the playful, carefree father figure that Nemo always
doesn't have and always wanted.
Yeah, he's always wanted. I also think it's no coincidence that he looks just like Santa Claus.
Just like. Also a lot like King Triton, just saying.
Oh, yeah, yes. A weird combination of the two.
The toys in this room also look so much like the toys in Great Mouse Detective.
Do they really?
Yes. They're drawn so similarly.
That's cool.
Oh, I haven't had this much fun in years.
Neither have I.
And once they're properly introduced, the king says to call him a nickname.
Just call me Morphe.
Morphe?
Morphe?
I really don't like that. It's super icky.
Not a makeup brand either.
This may be a stretch, and I'm sorry to everyone involved, but this is grooming 101.
I mean,
he shows Nemo that he's just a kid at heart who doesn't like the responsibilities of being an adult. He tells him to forget the formalities and call him by a fun, kid-friendly nickname, and then he entrusts him with a secret, a big boy responsibility, keeping the golden key safe. And this is when Morphe drops the bomb.
Now, Nemo, my delightful boy, I have invited you here to become my sole heir.
yeah, that's a lot.
Which no one was expecting.
That's a whole lot.
Because that's not what was promised.
I was confused, frankly.
Me too. So the main gist is that Nemo has been deceived. He was invited to Slumberland under the false pretense of being nothing more than the playmate of Princess Camille. Secretly, the king's intentions are for Nemo to become the heir to the throne. And to accomplish this, he needs Nemo to become a close companion of his daughter, the princess, so that one day their marriage may be arranged.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess because the royal bloodline must pass through a male? Is this some patriarchal bullshit?
I mean, it's all patriarchal bullshit, yeah.
Is this just the dream of a pubescent boy?
I tried to work it out because I think the idea is that Princess Camille cannot rule up like on her own.
Yeah.
Which this is feeling very Princess Diaries to me for a moment. Princess Diaries 2, A Royal Engagement, very specifically, because
oh, wow, yeah.
Not to spoil a movie that came out, probably 20 years ago at this point. In that film, the princess goes to the Parliament of Genovia and tries to rewrite the law to allow herself to rule without a husband.
Ah, yeah.
And that's how it should happen here as well. Princess Camille is clearly fit for the job.
Yeah, she knows what she's doing.
I have no doubts about her ability to rule Slumberland.
Yeah.
However,
Same.
This patriarchal idea gets in the way,
Right.
And she needs Nemo to be a part of it.
I felt kind of bad for her.
I felt very bad for her. Yeah, but that's women all throughout history. This is nothing new, my friend. Nothing new at all.
Oh, of course not. Nothing new under the sun.
I had a lot of
Solomon
coherent
says.
thoughts about this earlier in the evening.
Sure. Yes. When we were talking about recording like 8 hours ago.
Yeah. Back then, I thought I could nail it.
All those years ago.
I definitely don't think that her father did any favors to Camille. I feel like he didn't acknowledge her. You know, we're all worried about Nemo and the way that his father treats him and the way that he's dismissed by his dad and everything.
Yeah.
But then you've got in the dream world, in Slumberland, the same thing is happening to Camille. And it's just kind of like a assumption. Like, yeah, of course that's what happens. He wants a boy. He's not a male. You don't have a male heir, you're nobody. Like, you need the male heir. And she's just dismissed.
Do we ever see him directly, like, acknowledge her or talk to her?
I don't recall seeing a whole lot of interaction between the two of them at all. Very little.
I didn't think about that. That's just so odd.
I think they try to give her a couple moments later that are sort of girl power. You know, she steps up. She isn't the damsel necessarily that you assume she's going to be when you first hear about her or when you first meet her.
Right.
Even when he first comes in, she's kind of calling the shots. She's upset about the way he's dressed. She's trying to get him to, you know, acquiesce to the royal way of life, to grow up a little bit faster, which I guess that's probably all part of the process as far as like puberty and, you know, she's maturing, she's figuring it out. And she's like, why are you so far behind me?
Sure.
So we get those moments where it feels a little bit more female friendly.
Yeah.
But overall, I think it missed the boat in a lot of ways with that.
Yeah. It's like it was so close, but it was just sort of like...
I don't know. I don't even know how close it was. I think it tried. That's the thing. I think that there were some creators in this lineup that were trying to get that message across. Right. And then it seems like there were others that just wasn't their priority. So then when you have a production story like this, where it's now all cobbled together by so many different creatives, you get this result of like kind of a mixed message or sort of like a signals are crossed, where she feels empowered in some moments and not nearly as empowered as she should be in other moments.
Right. Yeah, I don't know how much of this came from like the comic strip directly. If it was ever about him becoming the heir to the throne, because I know in the comic, he was just summoned to be the princess's friend, playmate. But I don't know how far it went.
And I guess the idea is like, we all know how that goes, you know.
Well, I guess so, but...
You're betrothed. In the words of Zazu.
Surprise! I don't know.
We're going to go full Lion King with it.
But I will say that I know this is fully intended on the part of the filmmakers, because at the end of the movie, they do have Camille and Nemo kiss.
You know, you are kind of cute.
There's really no getting around it. But it all might come down to who you agree with, too. Hayao Miyazaki or Ray Bradbury. Is this all nothing more than a dream, or is it a very real world on the astral plane that people do visit when they dream? If it's just a dream, then this is just a little boy, you know, dreaming up this big adventure, where he's the main character, so it makes sense.
If it's a whole separate kingdom that exists
if it's a real
somewhere
place,
else,
then it's f***ed up.
Yeah, right. I guess you're right.
Super.
You can kind of put it down to that.
King Morpheus was voiced by Bernard Earhart, who has been acting since the 70s, voiced characters in various installments of Scooby-Doo and the Smurfs, Johnny Quest, GoBots, Adventures in Odyssey. He voiced Wolf in Rover Dangerfield, which Luke told us to watch. And he voiced a few characters in that Visionaries Knights of the Magical Light.
I haven't thought about Johnny Quest in a minute.
No.
Now, Professor, escort my heir to meet the princess.
Oh, yes, Your Majesty.
Princess?
After giving Nemo the key to Slumberland, he sends him off to meet his young but seemingly older than Nemo daughter, Princess Camille. Camille? I keep saying it differently.
I don't know. I had a friend named Camille, so I say Camille.
She seems to have a much more mature understanding of the intended relationship between the two of them. There's also this very intentional and uncomfortable sexual undertone to the whole thing.
So this is Nemo.
Like you were saying, you know, She's making fun of his pajamas. Like he arrives, she's playing piano and all this stuff. She's very well versed in this whole lifestyle.
And the idea that she's trying to get him to step up and like step into it and be a man and
Yeah. She expects more of him. Like she's like circling him, sizing him up. She's like checking him out. It's really odd to me.
It was strange.
And like, the jester servant characters like whispering about the heir meeting the princess, and like even Professor Genius is like,
have nothing but fun. Goodbye, Nemo.
Goodbye, Nemo. It's like,
I wrote that down too.
What's happening?
What else would they be having?
What's supposed to happen in this room?
These are
alone?
children.
Good God, everybody, calm down.
It was weird.
It's very strange.
It's just that no one has ever accepted a royal invitation in his underwear.
We've talked before about how girls are always portrayed as more mature than boys. Mm-hmm. I think that's true here as well.
And they're more mature because the expectations on girls are
because
higher.
The expectation is higher, right?
And we teach them to be more mature, and we tell the boys it's okay that they're not mature.
Right.
But then we still let the boys lead.
And then, here's the king basically teaching him like, oh, it's okay to just stay young and stay immature.
You can stay young. The women grow up around us and for us and take care of us. So they take care of everything, but we are the leaders in name. And it's pretty great. It's a great lifestyle to be a king. And it was. This is all historically true.
No, it's true.
And
it's true.
Sadly, not historically. Sadly, it's presently true in a lot of cases.
Simba thought he knew.
That's what I'm saying.
Simba thought he knew.
But who took care of the Pride Lands?
Oh.
When Simba decided to go Hakuna Matata?
Yeah. The female lions.
Nala, Sarabi. Say their names.
I don't know their names. I know Nala's name, but that's it.
I was just saying it like, we should appreciate that. The whole idea is...
I haven't seen it in like 25 years, but yeah.
Are you kidding?
No, seriously, I haven't seen it.
That's the one that I haven't seen it in a few years, but I definitely go back to my Lion King fix.
So she makes fun of his pajamas, his pet rat.
My little rat?
Icarus.
Icarus. Not Icarus's fault.
Which they never said the word squirrel. I'm like, what's the harm in him just saying he's not a rat, he's a squirrel? Why couldn't they just say the word? It drove me crazy.
Because Icarus is more of a human, I guess.
I guess so. I don't know.
Any of it would be reductive because he's...
Dehumanize the talking squirrel.
Yeah.
But when Nemo gets mad at her, that's when she giggles and says that he's cute.
It's so interesting what we reinforce, isn't it?
Yeah.
So interesting. So interesting.
Interesting. It's interesting, isn't it? But it's just weird to me how so many of these relationships in movies begin with the characters like hating each other.
Yeah. This is a trope that is very common.
It's usually the super independent and strong-willed and strong-minded female meets the super goofy, insufferable male character.
Hijinks ensue.
Han Solo.
Mostly for the boy.
But then she wins him over by flirting with him. And they have a great day together, enjoying all the magical fun that Slumberland has to offer.
It did make me laugh, and I don't know that it was intentional, but very early on, the princess has this accent that she's putting on, which feels very much like a little kid playing dress up.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that was directed or if that's just how she read for the role, but it felt very childlike. It felt very much like a kid putting on a voice.
Play pretend princess.
Yes.
I was uncomfortable with the emphasis on his wearing pajamas, like being in his underwear the whole time.
They kept talking about it.
They kept going on and on about it. It was meant to be humorous.
Get the boy some clothes. You realize you brought him here from his bed, correct? Like,
yes,
you did that.
Give him some clothes.
Give the man some clothes or leave him alone.
But it was taken to a whole new level of discomfort when it rains. And they end up taking all their wet clothes off. Ugh. And it's implied that they're totally naked together up in this tree.
Yeah.
But they're conveniently covered in fluffy clouds. What's that movie where the kids get covered in leeches and they take all their clothes off? The boy and the girl.
Leeches?
They get covered in leeches. It's not Stand By Me with all the boys. It's a boy and a girl. And they have to take their clothes off because they got leeches.
It's not Terabithia, is it?
I don't think so. It's older than that, I think. And they're both standing there with no clothes on. And it's a super sexually charged moment in this movie with these children. And it's awkward.
I gotta remember.
Anyway, it just reminded me of that.
90s era movie scene. Something like, not a horror movie or Stand By Me. This is a Reddit.
Yeah. Thanks, Reddit. It's got to be there.
The Amazing Panda Adventure apparently has a scene like you described.
That's it. It's the Amazing Panda Adventure.
Oh my God. I must have seen this at like a sleepover or like a something.
Oh my God.
I didn't have that movie.
Holy shit. I cannot believe that. I just like forgot that movie existed.
Apparently you didn't, because
I think about that scene with the leeches all the time. And I never remembered that it was the Panda Adventure movie. Oh my God.
You're having a moment like I had with Summer of the Monkeys when we talked about fairy rings.
Yeah.
Because I was like, whoa, that was just so deeply buried.
I gotta watch it again, as uncomfortable as it is. The more you listen to That's Pretty Dark, the more you remember your childhood.
And the more you Google, you can find anything on a Reddit thread.
That's true.
When you think about it, though, obviously this was made for young children. And this is... I don't know. These are weird feelings. This is a weird... And it makes me feel, honestly, a little bit better that you feel like he's 10 or 11, because... When I thought they were so much younger, I thought it was even weirder. But I think this is the moment where that would be a little bit uncomfortable. There would be a little more tension. You wouldn't really know why.
Right.
It's not like anything is explicit. So I don't think they handled it terribly. I just think it was unnecessary for the film.
Yeah. Why? Yeah. They just didn't.
I don't know why they needed it.
We didn't need them to take their clothes off. It rains and they have to leave. Next scene. Move on.
Yeah. The weather nymphs are jealous.
Right. Who cares?
Whatever.
Who cares if their clothes are wet?
Yeah.
You know, like, I don't understand.
But were they like, was that the point at which they needed to give him new, like, why didn't they give him new clothes to begin with? That would have solved the whole issue. They didn't give him new clothes until he got to his coronation. He was in his pajamas the whole time. They could have brought him new clothes when they brought him into Slumberland. They could have brought new clothes. That could have been the gift that Camille sent to him. You know what I mean? There are a lot of ways to solve this, but I think that they wanted that moment of her sizing him up and him feeling inadequate. Mm-hmm. That could have happened in royal clothes because he would have been uncomfortable in them either way.
They could have been too big.
They could have been too big. Silly. Yeah, there are so many things they could have done.
It could have been this nice moment of like, oh, your clothes fit now. You grew into them. How cool.
Yeah. Like, obviously, they wanted to connect him with the pajamas and the Slumberland. I
mean, that's part of the comic strip. He was always in his pajamas.
That's where I'm going. Yeah. Like, they obviously wanted to have that connection, but I don't know why they had to harp on it. They could have made it a moment and then been done with it. But instead, they had all of these sequences that continue to reference it.
They fixated on it, yeah.
And I don't get it, frankly. We can look back at this stuff. Sometimes we don't think they get it exactly perfect, you know?
Yeah. You do what you can.
I don't know why.
I hope nobody scrutinizes my work like this in the future.
And you want to talk about a fever dream, because they just merge all these circus vibes with all these lights and colors and fairy nymph-like creatures, and it's
so much pulled from the comics, so many visuals, so much like style stuff.
It felt like they were trying to just smash as many of these visuals in the scene as they possibly could.
Yeah.
To the point where you lose focus. You don't know what you're supposed to focus on. You don't know what's going on at all.
Yeah.
It's a very like Munchkinland. You know, we're going to Technicolor now, and it's going to be. It's
very the
big.
Land of Oz, right?
It's very big, but not necessarily in a. I wasn't captivated. I was confused. We'll put it that way.
It falls short for sure. It's like weird and different and strange. It looks a lot like an anime. It's just also boring. I don't really know why.
Yeah, and I hate to use the word, but I have it in here a couple times.
It was boring. I was bored.
The Goatmobile was kind of spooky, though.
I like the Goatmobile, though. That was the coolest thing. I like how, it did what I wanted it to do. When I was watching it, I was like, do that. Oh, yeah, that's right. Do it again, but different. Oh, that was good, too. I liked the way it moved. The choreography was nice.
If you don't know what the hell we're talking about,
watch the movie.
In this scene, they get into kind of a rolling cart, but it is
the Goatmobile
maneuvered on all sides by goats. And they're very they're not anthropomorphized at all. They're very much goats.
Yeah.
With goat eyes, and goat horns, and goat feelings. And they're trekking them through.
Yeah, it's wild.
Slumberland.
It's trippy, for real. Princess Camille was voiced by Laura Mooney. She appeared in Twilight Zone the movie, The Monsters Today, Saved by the Bell, The Wonder Years. She voiced Kessie in The New Adventures of Winnie the Pooh, Katie Kaboom in Animaniacs, and was the therapy cat lady in Disney Pixar's Soul.
Aw, she really kept going.
And it's odd because between Animaniacs and Soul was 22 years. Yeah. She didn't do anything for 22 years.
Wow. She just returned, decided, pick it back up. That's very cool.
Just came back for that.
I respect it.
She also apparently provided her voice for a talking doll from the 80s called Cricket.
If you had a cricket, I did not have a cricket.
I looked it up and it's really creepy. But dolls are creepy though, so especially the talking ones.
Do you?
Yeah.
Right on time for your schooling, Nemo.
Schooling? But I hate school.
To be a prince, you must be taught to behave like one. Come along.
Part of the expectation behind Nemo's role in Slumberland is his mandatory schooling.
Who are all these people?
Why, they're your teachers, my boy. Now, let the lessons begin.
Cue the song Etiquette, where his many teachers sing about the things he must learn, going from one to the next in rapid succession. He must learn to eat like a prince, dance like a prince, fence like a prince, read a lot of books, and finally, he must learn how to ride a horse.
Very important skills.
Very important.
The etiquette song is where I heard the Sherman Brothers the most, because this
That's
was
really
a
where they
very
shined in
Mary
this movie.
Poppins sort of vibe that we had going on here.
Yeah.
We have these moments, though, where he's learning etiquette. He's learning from these qualified people in high society how to be a person, how to assimilate into royal society or society in general. And we get the idea that the order, the structure, this expectation is good. This is what is good. It's a good versus bad or a good versus evil dynamic. And it's set up such that this is the good part. And then you immediately get the contrast of that with Flip.
Yeah.
There's just the mischief is bad and order is good.
Being well behaved.
And it
proper.
felt very much like they were trying to force feed this to a child audience.
Yeah, which is funny because the movie I'm watching, all this looks horrible. This looks bad.
Does not look like fun.
Strict, and I mean that's how it's supposed to be for Nemo too. So I'm kind of like, but wasn't Slumberland supposed to be good?
I thought so.
What are you doing, filmmakers?
That's what I'm saying. It all
Like, what's
gets
the
really
point?
disjointed. I don't know what I'm supposed to root for. I don't know what I'm supposed to hope for.
How am I supposed to feel about this stuff? Because Slumberland was supposed to be, it's a land of dreams.
And I recognize that we're looking at it from the perspective of a young boy, but at the same time, you know, it's giving like feels good to be bad vibes, sort of, because it's like, break the rules a little bit. Do this and that, you know, and But the etiquette stuff is like so clearly meant to like get a cute song in a kid's head about how it's good to have etiquette or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
It's just
so
weird.
weird to me.
I don't know what the goal is. I don't know what the goals are.
I don't understand.
I feel very torn.
Yeah. Tone shifts everywhere.
Yeah,
What's
that's
the point here, guys?
You're right. It's just shifting tone back and forth. Kind of like this episode.
It's not almost midnight.
Nope.
And later, at Nemo's princely coronation, Morpheus tells everyone that Nemo is his chosen heir to the throne, while the actual blood heir, Camille, stands smiling in the background, awkwardly. I'm like, she's right there.
Yep, she's right there. Why are you doing this?
As my heir, it will be Prince Nemo's solemn duty to protect Slumberland from the Nightmare King as I have done. The royal scepter, our sole defense, will be passed on to the prince.
But I love the qualifier. But because he's so young and stupid and weak, the scepter won't be given to him for a while because it's real dangerous. King Morpheus puts on a royal display of power, reciting the incantation that activates the magical scepter. Then, the king orders everyone to dance until dawn like he's a freaking Sanderson sister. And he's so relieved by the relinquishing of his own responsibility that he joins in the feverish dancing, handing off the ultra dangerous royal scepter to Nemo and becoming entirely unaware of the approaching evil that is Nightmare. And this plot line comes to an end halfway through the movie when the essence of Nightmare wraps its goopy black tendrils around the king's body and absorbs him into the darkness.
This whole, it all felt so strange.
So weird to me. The dancing lasted way too long.
The dancing lasted forever. And not only that, but he's like,
I did not like it.
Dance until dawn to this really sleepy music. Like this sleepy ass, tired music. Please,
where's
dance
the beginning
until dawn.
of Tower of Terror? What's that song when you need it?
Yeah. The jazz. Yeah. Pick up the pace, guys. Maybe that's the idea. Maybe they're supposed to have the energy to dance until dawn, so they're supposed to go real slow with it.
It's a marathon.
Right.
Not a sprint.
Right. Got to pace ourselves.
Dance until dawn.
I just thought it was super funny.
Dance until the dream ends because Nemo wakes up.
Mm-hmm.
Nah, all hell's got to break loose first.
Maybe if I had watched this as a child, the goopy black tendrils, as you described them, would have spooked me pretty good. But
yeah,
watching it as a grown up, this is one of those cases. And I don't have them happen very often where I can say, it didn't get me. Because I was too worried about everything else.
It's confusing. I didn't have a clear sense of what Nightmare was.
No. The stakes were all over the
place. Because the filmmakers didn't know what Nightmare was either.
Mm-mm.
That's clear.
The Nightmare King was underutilized.
Yeah, for sure.
And this is not to offend anyone who watched this as a child, loved it, and was traumatized or terrified by it, because I fully understand why you might have been. I just, in this case, only have the perspective of watching this in my 30s going,
yeah. Yeah. Speaking of grown men attempting to groom this young boy into a lifestyle of their own choosing.
Yeah, we got to talk about it.
We have the controversial tone-deaf, missing-the-mark character of Flip, the cigar-smoking clown in Greenface.
Well, hiya, kid. How you doing? Want to ditch old sourpuss here and have some fun?
What? Of all the impertinence.
See you later, kid.
Okay.
Bye.
When we first meet Flip, he's riding on his giant black crow, Flap. Flip is flapping around.
Flap.
Professor Genius tells Nemo to stay away from Flip, who is a frightful fellow. And just as soon as the professor leaves Nemo alone for 1 second, Flip shows up to sink his hooks in.
You're Flip. You're a frightful fellow.
You got it. I'm frightfully funny, frightfully friendly, and I can make your dreams come true.
He's got that Slumberland savoir-faire.
He's got something, all right.
He's got a map to the city. That's what he's got.
Mm-hmm.
And he knows where they can find King Morpheus, who, at this time, was still missing.
All it takes is a little technique, kid.
He leads him into the upside-down hallway, where Nemo then falls into the king's playroom. And later, like you were saying, when Nemo meets Flip again, he's just been given his whirlwind of a princely schooling lesson. So when Flip offers him a chance for, an escape, for a bit of fun, Nemo goes along, of course.
Gotta make some mischief.
Stick with me, kid, and you'll be a prince of mischief. Here's your crown.
They go shake things up at the police station and make their getaway on Flap. They wreak havoc at the town square by tickling Gertie the dinosaur's nose with a crow feather. They set off a bunch of fireworks, and Flip sets it up so that they wind up exploring the tunnels and caverns beneath the castle.
Where are we going now?
Have more fun, trust me, kiddo. Ooh-wee.
Stop it, Flip. This place gives me the creeps as it is.
Don't be afraid, kid. As long as you're with Flip, there's nothing but fun ahead.
I hate that.
Yeah.
I hate how that sounds down in the darkness when it's just this grown man and this little boy. I hate the way that sounds.
I don't like it in general. There's like almost a Willy Wonka edge to it as well, where it's like, not even thinking that nefariously, but it's just kind of there's no earthly way of knowing which direction we are going.
God, I love that
Feels
movie.
Weird. Me too. We're going to get there too.
Gene Wilder, man.
Ooh, only Gene Wilder. He's the greatest.
Flip is voiced by the legendary Mickey Rooney, a renowned American performer with the acting chops to land him 18 awards throughout his career, including a Primetime Emmy for portraying the titular character in the 1981 TV movie Bill. Not to mention winning the 1939 Juvenile Award at the Academy Awards and being nominated for 4 Oscars throughout his career. He also had the pipes to team up with Judy Garland in a number of musicals, one of which led to him being the first teenager ever nominated for an Oscar for Best Lead Actor.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Well, right on.
He also acted alongside such stars as Audrey Hepburn, Elizabeth Taylor, Ben Stiller, Amy Adams, and Jason Segel.
Those were 2 different groups of people.
And, many others, but those are the ones that I knew about. To tie his career into the history of Little Nemo, his first of many stage appearances was at 17 months old in his parents' vaudeville act in New York.
Well, his history just ties right in, doesn't it?
Doesn't it? Many people point out that although Mickey Rooney was this super talented musical performer, Flip wasn't given a song in this musical.
No, that's
kind of odd.
A shame. That's a travesty, frankly. If they're going to give the songs that they gave, they could have afforded to give one to him.
I think Flip could have had a great song.
Mm-hmm.
He could have had a really, really
maybe
great
he did
song.
at one point in these rewrites, you know?
Yeah, maybe. Who knows?
Would you look at that?
Wow.
They oh so serendipitously find the forbidden door down there in the darkness. I can't tell if Flip knows what he's doing or not, but he certainly convinces Nemo to break his promise to the king.
He told me not to open the door with that symbol on it.
Let's open it.
They unlock the door for just a peek at what can only be Hexus's grandfather.
I wrote down, is this an ancestor of Hexus?
An ancestus of the Hexus. They run off forgetting to lock the door back. And I really could have used a Toxic Love reprise or something like that.
Hey, where was Tim Curry when you need him?
I know.
Story of all our lives, right?
I wish he'd voiced Nightmare in this movie. It'd have been awesome.
That would have been amazing. But it wasn't the right vibe.
Could have been. It wasn't, but it could have been. If they'd actually used Nightmare for what he should have been intended for. Mm-hmm. So much more potential. And as soon as the toxic goo of Nightmare shows up and things get real, Flip shows his true colors and turns on Nemo.
Nemo did it!
No! Flip!
Honest, I saw it with my own eyes.
Yeah.
But luckily, nobody really blamed Nemo at all, as we discover when Nemo himself returns to Slumberland from briefly waking up. But once Nemo saves Flip from being banished into space, Flip straight up flirts with the princess, who was a child.
Did anyone ever tell you you're kind of cute when you're angry?
And I guess girl power move, she punches him in the face.
She does. That was one of the moments I was referencing, where they tried to give her these little moments of something, but
yeah,
too little, too late.
It's just so weird.
Too little, too late, in my opinion.
So weird and inappropriate and uncomfortable. When we first see Nightmare, our first glimpse,
It's the nightmare.
Nemo is given a turn at the helm of the king's dirigible.
Steady, Nemo! Full power! Don't worry, folks. I've sailed through Nightmare before.
It appears as though his reckless driving steers them right into Nightmare, or at least close enough to count. But in this scene, the Nightmare King's red eyes in the stormy night sky very much resemble the Eye of Sauron. This was much more apparent in one of the proofs of concept. I can't remember who it was that I read, but somebody was influenced by Lord of the Rings.
I can see
somebody on this team.
I can definitely see that.
And they brought that eyes in the distant sky, once he sees you, you're in his grip, kind of vibe with this whole opening scene
for sure
in the dirigible.
It's also kind of a labyrinth. He's got spies all over the kingdom.
And it's confusing too. If it's actually the Nightmare King's eyes, or if it's that massive ass, floating stingray looking thing that flies around.
That thing's never not confusing.
Later, King Morphe gives Nemo the golden key and says it will open any door in Slumberland. But there's one door he should never open. The door that has the same symbol on it as the key. The symbol of a dragon.
This you must promise, and this promise you must never break.
Of course, this is a parallel to the fridge/pantry thing in Nemo's kitchen at home, where his mother keeps the pies. And when he's sleepwalking earlier, there's a note on the door that says, "Remember your promise." Mm-hmm. I guess he promises not to eat the pies anymore, but we don't see that. Mm-hmm. And when Nightmare kidnaps King Morphe, Flip tells everyone, Nemo opened the forbidden door, and they turn on him.
No.
Yeah.
No!
So we get this
was
nightmarish.
Probably the worst part of the movie for me, as far as a bad feeling or fear, any kind of dread.
Yes.
It was this.
It was a whole lot. They all approach him with angry, wide eyes. It's very scary.
The shame of it all. Just the way that
oh, yeah.
they are shaming him actively, like he did something horrible, even though, of course, he really didn't know what he was doing. He didn't know anything about any of it. Flip did, but Flip immediately turns the tables and says, yeah, Nemo did it. Nemo did it, which again, I can tell they're kind of spoon feeding a lesson to kids about be careful who you trust and be careful.
Don't break your promise.
And don't break your promises. And, they're pretty heavy handed with that. Because then they're like, this is the consequence. Everybody in the kingdom will hate you and despise you, and you'll be an outcast because everybody hates you. And it was just a whole lot of shame in a very uncomfortable way.
The way their eyes looked, it sort of implied, I don't know, like an unhingedness. Mm-hmm. Like they're insane with rage. Like they were murderous almost, the way they were approaching him.
Yeah.
It was just really creepy.
And of course, this is
it felt like a nightmare.
That's what I was going to say. This is probably meant to make it feel as much like a nightmare as possible, because we've all had those moments in a nightmare when
the grand hall,
right, when everyone, in our nightmare
turns on us,
is treating us terribly, or we feel that like shame from the whole room. And that is a very classic nightmare feeling.
In my nightmares, in my real life, what? Yeah, it was a lot.
So I think you're spot on that is when it became a nightmare and not a dream anymore.
Right.
This is when Nightmare Land seeps into Slumberland.
Infiltrates, right. And because of all this, Nemo blacks out and wakes up in his own bed.
Only a dream.
He's relieved that it was only a dream, but the scepter is under the covers. Not just a dream after all. The disembodied voice of King Morpheus beckons him down into the kitchen.
King Morpheus?
Where the note on the pantry door says, remember your promise. But it turns into the symbol of the dragon. And then water floods the house like one of Ramses' curses, encouraged to cover the dog.
I have that too. Is this a plague? Could this be a plague?
And Nemo floats out to sea on his bed, haunted by the wrong he's done Morpheus and all of Slumberland.
Floating on Nightmare Lake.
Damn. Yeah, buddy. So yeah, it's this continued blending of the dream, but he's home, but he's still asleep, he's still dreaming, and it's still a nightmare. One thing after another. And so much of this reminds me of all the Oz books from L. Frank Baum.
It's the professor. Hey, professor! It's me, Nemo!
Nemo finding Professor Genius floating out on the water and having this reunion where the professor catches him up to speed. It's like whenever Dorothy returns to Oz in the books, she ends up encountering characters we've met in a previous book. And they tell her like what's been happening in Oz while she's been away. Because the last thing we knew, she'd fixed everything and Oz was perfect. But since she's been gone, everything's kind of gone to hell.
Since you've been gone.
And it usually makes no real logical sense how they meet or anything, like Nemo floating on this giant sea, and then here comes floating, Professor Genius. But they always have bad news about Oz, and she always returns to save it from whatever unhappy thing is happening. Similar to the Narnia books as well.
I was literally just thinking about Narnia. Like
they have to go back. Right.
All these threads from our childhood.
And Nemo does just that. He vows to journey to Nightmare Land and rescue Morpheus. But to do this, he must save Flip from being banished into space via a huge human cannonball cannon. Because Flip doesn't just have a map of Slumberland.
Yes.
He also has a map of Nightmare Land.
He can flip it.
Nice.
I got it.
When they need to travel to Nightmare Land, it becomes this really complicated journey just to navigate the waters and find their way to Nightmare Land at all. Here's where I'm confused about this. If Nightmare is just on the other side of the cloud in the sky, or just on the other side of a door in the dungeon of the castle, then why is the journey to Nightmare Land so complicated? Like Professor Genius says, nobody knows where Nightmare Land is. Is this just convoluted dream logic? Or maybe convenient fridge logic? Or is it just a plot hole?
I think the Nightmare King was in jail. He was being held under lock and key, much like Hexus in the tree.
You think that's what it was?
I don't think
he was in the dungeons being imprisoned?
Yes, I don't think he was like a portal to Nightmare Land. I think he had been captured and was now prisoner in Slumberland. And freeing him maybe either opened the portals to Nightmare Land or, maybe it isn't very well known how to get there. But Flip knows because he's got that map that he can flip.
So when they encounter the eyes of Nightmare in the sky early on in the movie. What is that? Is that the flying stingray thing watching them?
Yeah, I think it's the flying monkeys of the Wicked Witch of the West. I think that these minions are still out there. Him being in prison doesn't change where they are.
So the Nightmare King was imprisoned in Slumberland, in the dungeons.
That's
beneath
my
Slumber
interpretation. I don't know if it's right.
But the land of Nightmare is still out there on the horizon.
That's what I think.
Okay.
I could be wrong. I could be very wrong.
I can buy that. I can buy this. I'm still confused about being able to fly through and navigate Nightmare, but they have to do this crazy Pirates of the Caribbean flip the ship thing.
Yes.
At the exact moment of the horizon.
I laughed about that too. They had to flip the ship.
They have to
get to the upside down.
Yes. To get to Nightmare Land.
Is anybody still with us? Hello, guys. How are y'all doing?
Definitely midnight here.
How are you? You're listening to this in the middle of the day going, what are they on? Like, what are they on, actually?
To get to Nightmare Land.
How do you know? It's just my antihistamines.
They have to get there by accident through a maelstrom in the sea, which is basically when we enter Jim Henson territory.
For sure.
When they get to, the swamps and the woods.
And personally, I loved that. Like the shift
too.
to the swamps, I was already vibing with the color scheme much better.
It feels very labyrinth. The whole thing. What's the stinky swamps? The smells, the eternal smell?
The bog of eternal stench.
Yeah.
I felt, don't ask me how I just pulled that out of my, I don't know. But I was way more immersed in the movie. It was immediately more interesting to me.
Agreed.
Just by virtue of the color changing.
I think I just answered my own question.
Did you?
About how do you get to Nightmare Land? You have to get there by accident.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you just can get in a dirigible and fly out there. And
but
I don't think you could just.
They meant to get there, so was it an accident? Like that's
no, they all fell asleep. They didn't mean to get caught in a whirlpool.
No, but they meant to get to Nightmare Land.
I know, but I feel like it has to be something.
Well, it's like a dream, right? You hope you'll end up in a certain dream, or you go to bed thinking about something, hoping that you can, control the dream in some way, or have that lucid dream experience, whatever it is. Like,
right.
It's that feeling of like, I can get there if I just try, and then you really can't, and you don't. And then all of a sudden, when you're not thinking about it, you fall into it.
When you try to do something in your dream, you can't do it. And then as soon as you shift the whole narrative, it's like the thing that almost just happened is now happening.
Yes.
Or, the nightmarish version of it is now happening. Yeah. I think there's something to that. It's dream logic. It's this nightmare logic.
I want to give it a lot more. Well, that'll be my final thoughts. We'll keep going. Those will be my final thoughts.
But yes, all this feels very labyrinth here in the Land of Nightmare. Not only do a band of water goblins nearly pull Camille into the swamp, but while venturing through the forest, Flip finds the good goblin Boomps.
I'm on fire. I'm on pay. I'm on pay. And the 1 and the 2 and the 3. Oh, we are the Boomps. Good goblin Boomps.
Who eventually help them sneak into Nightmare Castle, so Nemo can defeat the Nightmare King with the royal scepter and help them rescue their imprisoned friend. And this feels like a bunch of different Jim Henson characters, very close to the chili down little freak show things that happened, except they're nice. So, yeah, I don't know. I liked them a lot.
Yeah, they were okay. I was okay with them.
Yeah, they were fine.
You didn't like our chili down friends, the Fire Gang. Hated them.
I don't like the Chili Fire Gang, no. But these guys are fine. They still feel like forced. They still feel like they were like, we need fuzzy, little, fun, inverted goblin characters to, flip the narrative here.
Yep.
But, whatever. This was the 80s. Every movie had this kind of thing.
They did.
Very trendy. And, of course, it wouldn't be a night in a spooky forest if our heroes weren't attacked by a cauldron of spooky bats. They do seem to have these ape-like faces, though, which I'm sure is just another nod to the movie version of Wizard of Oz.
For a monkey.
And this is when Nemo discovers an ounce of the scepter's power. The only bit of the incantation he can remember is Jazama Pajama.
Jazama Pajama, Jazama
and
Pajama.
That's it. Just enough for a quick bluff to scare off these lower level baddies. That is, until the previously imprisoned Boomp conveniently shows up to give Nemo a message from the still imprisoned King Morpheus himself.
This is the incantation. It's the secret to use the scepter. It's got superpower, enough to defeat the Nightmare King.
Wow, that's great!
Dream logic indeed.
Too convenient.
How are we going to get Nemo the incantation? How is he going to remember? We'll just have the guy fall through the ceiling. The guy that was missing, wow,
perfect.
Genius. Okay, and not only that, but he has a message from King Morpheus to give to Nemo.
Man.
Couldn't have written this better myself. Fridge logic. But I must have missed something, though, because Icarus now informs everyone that if Nemo uses the incantation with the royal scepter, Nemo could die. Why?
Because it's so powerful.
I mean...
It's just the most powerful object in the whole universe.
Apparently so.
And so it's...
apparently so.
Dangerous to use because he doesn't know how to do it right.
Because we needed to raise the stakes a little bit in the story?
No, it's not because of that at all.
Oh, there's a real logical reason?
Yeah, I'm sure
there's
there is.
There's a real fridge logical reason?
I can't find it, but yeah.
It would have been nice if like King, Morphe had said something to that effect. Of like,
I mean, he did say like you're too young to use it, you're too weak or whatever. Like
he's mostly but he didn't say like it could kill you. But he also didn't say don't use this key on the door in the dungeon because you're going to unleash the darkest entity in the universe.
Yeah,
so
he didn't really give a whole lot of
Dumbledore in that regard. He's
he
very
didn't give a whole lot of direct instruction.
No, don't you hate that?
Just get your etiquette.
Just get your etiquette, and you'll be all right. You'll be all right.
I had in my notes right here 2 things. I was having trouble like sinking into the animation or the colors the way that I feel like I could, even with things that we've talked about, like Once Upon a Forest, that was so dark to me as a child and had so much darkness about it in my memory.
Yeah.
Even that I could sink into the beauty of the colors and the animation. But for me, I did not feel that richness. I did not feel that depth at this point in this film.
No.
The second thing that I wrote at this point was into my notes app. This movie is trying to be too many things.
Yeah, thank you.
That was my analysis.
That's part of my conclusion too.
I'm sure. But this was just the point when it sort of started to fall apart for me because I wanted so badly to get behind it, knowing the very little that I did know about the folks that were involved with it.
Yeah.
I wanted to so badly. And this is just when kind of the wheels fell off, in my opinion.
I think so too. I think once there was, the replenished funds and Fujioka was on his own and he basically said, I am going to, strong arm this into existence. I'm going to will this into existence.
I respect that. I really do.
I do too.
I really respect that.
I think that they rushed a lot of the animation at this point. I think they used a lot of what they had already and it was decent and good because they had time. I think a lot of this is where it shows that they just had to get it done. Kind of like this episode tonight.
There are always parallels if you look closely, Darklings.
Humans are pattern-seeking creatures. We can't help it.
This is the headspace that this movie put Christian in.
But since our heroes are going to go fight anyway, despite the reality that it might kill Nemo, let's step inside Nightmare Castle.
We have to.
Which is basically hell. Is it not?
It is. Or something akin to that.
The thousands of goblins resemble demons to me.
They do.
And the giant Nightmare King very much resembles Satan, complete with red eyes and horns and a deep voice like a growl.
It's very Beast from Beauty and the Beast. If Beast were Satan and also Chernobog.
Oh yeah, it definitely is. Well, he reminds me of like a bunch of villains from Samurai Jack. They all have that like what's the big main villain?
That's the most anime adjacent thing that you are like well versed in.
The main villain from Samurai Jack. That's what it looks like to me.
Yeah.
Remember this guy?
It's been a long time. Okay, I see that.
Yeah.
Satan.
This is the point where I fully understood why this movie would have stuck with anyone who saw it as a kid.
Yes. Very valid. All of your emotions.
Yes,
y'all.
Absolutely. It doesn't hold the same emotional weight as All Dogs Go to Heaven, but I wanted to ask you how it compared on like a visually frightening level. with the whole fiery dragon Satan.
To me, it still couldn't quite get there because
they didn't do enough with the...
They didn't expressly say hell or anything like that. You know, it's something dark and deep, but
That's true.
It isn't supernaturally existential the way that All Dogs was for me as a child watching it. So yeah, it'd be really hard for me to compare the two on that level.
So it was just so dark. But anyway, yeah, I don't know. It felt very intentional on these.
Well, they wanted this to be the earth-shattering moment. They wanted this to be the moment that, underpins everything. These are the stakes. You know,
I mean, this is where nightmares live.
Exactly.
Well, all of your nightmares come from is this hub.
We are in the belly of the beast.
Yeah.
And I think, unfortunately, everything around it didn't allow the stakes to be high enough for me to feel the terror that I wanted to feel in this moment.
It's an exciting thought that we're going to capture nightmares in a movie. And then it's like, but how do you actually do that? When it's
and
like
I think
an animated
it falls
film?
into that same trap, which is good and bad that this film does, is it tries to get the essence of something that really can only be felt in a human dream state.
Right.
It's trying to capture something that's what art is about, right? That's what art is supposed to do. But I feel like they're shooting for the moon here, trying to capture that feeling because it's so specific to a person and it's so I don't know. It's like trapped in our body. Like this is the place where our body and our mind meet, and it is really hard to visualize.
It's tough. Yeah.
Especially when you have a revolving door of people trying to animate it.
Yes. Yeah, a lot of it felt so just even from one cut to the next, it felt like you could see different animation styles at certain points. And I was just like,
which is not always the case. I mean, you can have animation teams of hundreds of people, and sometimes it all feels like one big brain, one cohesive idea. And this was not that.
No, not at all. Not at all. But I do want to point out the goblin addressing the Nightmare King literally does the Nazi salute.
Yes.
And says, "Hail to the nightmare."
Yeah.
Hail to the nightmare.
What? You're making a connection with this being evil, okay? Okay, but
it's not like the Japanese have a lot to apologize for from their contributions to the 1940s.
It wasn't necessary.
It's not like they need to take a stance against Nazism.
But that could be what they're doing in that they equate it to evil. That's what I'm saying. What is the worst, most terrible thing? And then they make it that.
How do we make this obviously evil while also saying that we know it's evil?
In case you wondered.
The whole world is a stage. And when you want your movie to be produced by Hollywood and distributed worldwide, you take a little, what's the word I'm looking for?
Liberty.
A little extra liberty to make it known you no longer identify with those kinds of things.
Oh, talk about the deep, dark parts of humanity. History.
Yeah.
We always be finding them.
But the Nightmare King was voiced by Bill Martin, who voiced characters in different Scooby-Doo installments, Transformers, The Real Ghostbusters, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Real Monsters, and then went on to voice a bunch of characters in various video games, like old Star Wars and Baldur's Gate games. The just weirdest thing about this guy is that he wrote Harry and the Hendersons.
Random?
Where'd that come from? I don't know. Voice actor, does video games, did movies. Wrote Harry and the Hendersons.
Cool.
I love that movie. I think about
you talk about it.
Yeah, 3 or 4 times a week. I always want to watch it and I never do. What's wrong with me?
I don't know. Delayed gratification.
Building up to something big, I guess.
You think you can hide? I know exactly where you are.
And when the Nightmare King learns that Nemo is in the castle with the scepter,
perhaps this will persuade you.
He uses Nemo's friends as bait, hoping to lure him out into the open.
How do you like my collection, Nemo?
He doesn't just have King Morpheus. Now he's got Professor Genius, Flip, and Princess Camille.
Mm-hmm.
And it works, of course. It's like when Voldemort uses Hagrid to lure Harry out into the Forbidden Forest. Mm-hmm. Also with the promise that he's going to murder everyone that he loves if he doesn't come out there. But that's what this is. Basically, I'm going to kill everyone that you care about if you don't come here yourself.
Yeah, it's going to be effective pretty much every time.
One of the darkest aspects of this movie.
Did you really think that rescuing your king would be that easy?
Nemo and the Boomps fly around on Nemo's bed, which I forgot was there until it was there again.
Which is kind of how a dream works.
As Nemo attempts to wield the power of the scepter, delivering a broken incantation as the massive, nightmarish flying stingray tries to knock them down, which is just so random to me.
These are weird words we have to say.
It's too late for this. I don't even feel like I'm saying the words right, but there they are. It takes Nemo a long time to get it right, but spoiler, Nemo ultimately succeeds.
I do love that Icarus is holding cue cards for him. That helped a little bit. That made me pay attention again, because I am going to be fully honest with you, Christian, and you, my dear Darkling friend who is listening to this. Mm-hmm. I was disengaged here.
Right.
But then I saw the cue cards and I was like, that was cute. And then as I started to pay attention again, Icarus was sucked up into this whirlpool.
Yeah, right.
And that was the only thing I cared about. The only thing I was not worried about King Morpheus and the fate of Slumberland. I wasn't bothered. I wasn't concerned. It had not caused me to care.
Right.
The only thing that I cared about was when I saw little Icarus.
Icarus being, sucked into this whirlwind.
Because what did he do to deserve that?
Nothing at all. He's just being cute.
He's just being a friend.
He's just being cute.
He was just being a friend.
But like, the thing that gets me is like, I'm over here thinking at the same time, that's all the Nightmare King's got? Just this massive giant inhale where he's just going to suck you into the darkness. Like, I guess that's kind of scary, but
I'm going to be honest.
Where's the power of your fear?
I'm going to be honest. Yeah. If it happened to me in a dream, I would be scared of that probably, right?
Sure.
I would probably be afraid.
If it happened in real life, I'd be extra
if it happened
terrified.
in real life, I would be terrified. But the thing is, I think we don't care enough about the connections. This is a classic thing. Like they haven't built the characters in a way that we care about their interconnectedness enough.
Yeah.
The little asides that they did decide to spend time on with the characters are things like Flip's cigar smoking.
Yeah.
And them trying to decree that he is not allowed to smoke cigars. And
yeah, it's so weird.
You know, we get these little asides, but the little asides don't feel warm. There's no warmth. There's no... Mm-hmm. I don't know. These relationships just aren't compelling to me.
No.
So you get to the end and it's like, obviously I don't want anything bad to happen to good characters or people, but you know what I mean? Like,
it's like, keep them.
It didn't hurt me. And again, I'm going to say it another time because I want you to know, listener, you're not alone in feeling like this movie was terrifying. We've gotten dozens of messages about this film and the impact of this film. So I do not want you to feel like I'm telling you it was a silly thing for you to be afraid of. It was not.
No.
It's just looking at it through this lens. It wasn't constructed in a way that made me care.
Well, I mean,
which doesn't happen that much for things that I watch. I get invested pretty easily.
No, for sure.
I sobbed this past weekend at the end. At the end of The Ones Who Live, like the new Rick and Michelle in Walking Dead, like I sobbed, I cried a lot. And of course, this is years removed, even though these characters, they've been around for a while.
And there are lots of animated movies that really tug at your heartstrings and make you care.
Some that I can't watch any longer, such as Let's Go to Heaven. Like,
sure,
I can care about something animated.
Like you grew up with it, you had it as a childhood thing.
Yeah.
But like, there are movies that we watch as adults that we didn't see as kids that do affect us in that same way.
Absolutely.
I mean, a lot of adults have cried at Pixar movies.
Up,
exactly. Like there are some that are so effective in that way.
Lion King.
They make you really care. And I'm with you. This one doesn't do that.
And it's sad because they tried so hard. They were trying so hard to compete with a Disney film. They threw everything and the kitchen sink at this.
Yeah.
To try to get there. And it's sad to me. It feels like a waste because they had all of this potential. They had all of this build up. And I feel like if anybody could have gotten there, it should have been them. And it just...
You know who could have gotten there?
Who?
Ray Bradbury.
Yes. Having seen the Halloween Tree now, and we will be talking
Perfect
about
example.
It. Yes.
Perfect example of an animated movie that we watched as adults, we didn't see as kids.
Yes.
Boom.
Despite not having watched the Halloween Tree as a kid, and of course we'll talk about this when we get to it, but I was beside myself with like dread.
Yeah.
anxiety. You didn't watch Brave Little Toaster as a kid, or you don't recall doing so.
Right,
but that one
right.
felt the same way for you.
That one is the one for me. That upsets me.
Even if it's not that warm, fuzzy, happy feeling that you want from all dogs. Like there are moments of that in all dogs, but it's not enough to pull you out of it.
Right.
Those movies can make grown people feel upsetting things.
A lot of complicated things.
And I really think this could have, and it just kind of missed the mark.
Sure did.
And it part of it I think is because they were trying too hard to do too many things, but
I agree.
We have a couple more scenes to get through before we finish shitting on this film. I'm so sorry.
The scepter's beam of power destroys the Nightmare King, and once fear itself is dissolved, the land of nightmare is cast in white rays of glowing morning light. And as these movies love to do, we have a Disney death.
Mm-hmm.
It appears Icarus was right. Using the scepter killed Nemo. Straight up killed him.
Mm-hmm.
He's dead. And that's pretty dark.
That is pretty dark.
But King Morpheus uses the scepter to return Nemo's life force back into his body.
A professional grown-up king with a lot of experience and knows how to use the scepter can use the powers for revival.
I guess that means that the scepter, because it's magic, it had to use Nemo's life energy, which is kind of what you were saying earlier. It's so powerful, but I feel like it actually just has to use so much of your power.
Yeah, I guess so.
And he didn't have enough because he's a little boy. So why are we giving him all this responsibility in the first place?
Great question.
That's my question.
Because it's his dream. That's probably
It's his
why.
dream, right. Unless it isn't, and it's actually real, and he's actually there. And I guess there's a moral, because Nemo confesses to breaking his promise and opening the door. But, Morpheus says,
"Your courage destroyed the Nightmare King, and his evil kingdom is gone forever. Quite the prince you've become, my little Nemo."
All is forgiven. And they send Nemo off home again in the dirigible. And this time Camille rides with him, giving him that kiss that nobody asked for. And I don't know, maybe this is just me, but I felt like the waking up moment was so awkward. He wakes up and his mom is there and he says he had a wonderful dream, and she's like,
"Well, from the look on your face, it must have been."
"By the look on your face, it must have been."
Yeah.
Is my brain just messed up?
I don't think so. I don't know.
Am I that screwed up?
I think it was definitely very tongue in cheek as a comment.
Yeah.
That didn't have to be yet again.
Again, it didn't need to be there. Not necessary.
I don't know. That might be a step too far, but it's not unreasonable to assume.
Yeah. I don't know. It just felt really forced and awkward. I was like, what's the context here?
Yeah.
What are we talking about?
Yet again, just why did we need this?
But to tie it all up nicely with a bow, there are two revelations that things are about to change in Nemo's life. One, this was the first night in a long time he hasn't fallen out of bed. And two, his parents are taking him to the circus.
Finally.
Thus, Nemo's dreams are fulfilled, giving us all a sense of closure on the whole thing. Kind of. He had his grand adventure in a faraway land, and he rescued not only the princess, but a whole kingdom. He was seen and heard and loved by all, and he even got a kiss from a pretty girl. So now, not only does he feel self-assured and confident and ready to face whatever the world throws at him, but he also gets to go to the circus and spend some quality time with his parents.
Mm-hmm.
And I, for one, hope there's pie.
I think it's interesting because it's like you went to summer camp, right? You went to summer camp, you got this independence, you grew up a little bit, you learned yourself, you had these moments of developing as a person.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go home after summer camp and your parents are like, "Okay, curfew's at this time, and this is when you do this." And it's a weird stepping back into that role. But I think in this case with Nemo, he's young enough, obviously, that this is still what he craves and what he wants. And after having that moment almost of stepping into this responsibility or this adulthood or whatever, he gets to go back to being a kid.
Right. It's nice.
You know what I mean? It's
That's
actually
nice.
a good thing in that way, the shift.
It feels like a Saturday morning.
Yeah.
You know, it's the weekend. He just had to wait for the weekend. He just needed to be patient one more day. You know, his dad just had Friday meetings or whatever, and now it's Saturday. And they get to go to the circus.
And that's a feeling that is, you know, I didn't get the warm fuzzies from it as I watched it, but like looking back at that feeling and what they were kind of doing with it, like that's cool. That's nice.
That's how I feel about this whole movie and this whole premise, like the whole comic and everything. When I gather everything about Nemo and Slumberland, everything from Winsor McKay to this movie, it is a warm, cozy, comfortable thought full of fantasy and fear and nightmares and falling, but bed sheets and cozy, you know, mattresses and like interesting characters. And I don't know what it is about it, but I love it. It has the 80s juxtaposition of like bright colors with darkness, but all with that faded, like early, dusty 1900s fade over it in like my photo editing app.
The antique filter.
The antique look. Yeah. Like it feels really good in my brain. And I love the whole premise, the whole concept of Nemo as a character and this journey into dreams.
I was glad that you were going to be the one to do it because I really think I can see that. Like I can see how it's really important to you.
It oddly enough has become very important to me.
And why it would be. You know, I get it. I definitely do understand that.
Yeah.
It reminds me as well of like a Page Master.
Yes. I got a lot of Page Master
kind of
vibes.
Wraps up in a similar way where he goes on this adventure and he gets all this responsibility. But I think
you go home changed.
The distinguishing factor between Page Master and Nemo, they both come back changed, I guess. But Nemo gets to come back to childhood.
Yeah.
And Richard Tyler has to go forward into adolescence.
Yeah, in a way,
That's the difference to me.
Didn't he like achieve another layer of childhood with like discovering the books and the fiction? I mean, he begins hallucinating.
I think for him, it was more about he was so afraid of everything and he overcame that fear a little bit. And that fear, that's what's kind of going to guide him into adolescence. Like he has the tools now to cope with it.
Yeah, Nemo never really had that fear. He had that self-doubt.
Yeah, but not the fear.
He wasn't so afraid, right?
That's just how I see it.
This is one of those movies that like I wake up from and I go, oh, I'm in my 30s.
Right, which I mean, that's I
wish I was a kid again.
Kind of
God,
the whole vibe of it is it.
Yeah,
and hopefully what they were aiming to do, you know, is to bring adults back to that feeling and to let children enjoy it for as long as they can.
I wish they'd done a better job of it, though.
Same.
I mean, okay, so I will say, you know, after kind of shitting on this movie a little bit and breaking down the darker themes that shouldn't have been so dark but were, I want to thank everybody who has requested this or recommended it to us because I have discovered something that I never knew about. I never even heard of this movie before. I obviously never heard of the comics or anything, and I feel like a whole new kind of journey. Like it has given me ideas for other stories that I have kind of been stuck on for a while. It's like giving me things to like actually apply that to this and pursue it and see where that takes you. Like
there's some inspiration here.
Yeah, it's inspired me. It's opening up some strange new doors. And I haven't bought the Nemo comics yet, the collection, but I'm still going to. And I'm looking forward to having a whole lot of fun looking into it. So yeah, thank you guys for telling us to cover this. Despite everything that we've said about it, I've had a hell of a good time. This has been a lot of fun. I love when I like get into something I've never known about before. And I feel like my brain comes alive about something like new and exciting. I get that serotonin, you know?
Dopamine.
I
feel, I get it. I want to give it more credit than like.
Yeah, that's the thing. I want to give it so much credit because it's still
because
it's still like an accomplishment.
It does such a good job of bringing these ineffable dreamlike feelings. Of course, not perfectly, but like they do a good job of finding that. It just wasn't tight enough. I think if it had been tighter, cleaner, and they had that same pull, the tug of the nightmare, the idea of falling into a dream and the way that they were able to play that, if they had just followed that through, it would have been a beautiful movie.
I agree.
I mean,
there's just so much they could have done with it.
Yeah. I really liked those elements, and I really wish they had leaned into that instead of the side quests, you know?
Yeah, they were just trying to include too much of the original source material, I think.
And I get it too, because it went on for the production went on for so long that they were like, this is our one chance to get it all in there. You know, like we're not going to get another shot at this kind of thing, which I get that too.
Which is kind of why I really fully agree with like Ray Bradbury's approach of like, let's just reimagine the whole thing. Mm-hmm. Let's reimagine what Nemo is.
Right.
He's had those adventures. That's old. Mm-hmm. Let's do something new and exciting. I've had a couple ideas too now for it. I'm like, actually, that could be pretty cool. There's so much there. I'll tell you about it off the air so nobody steals my ideas. But man, I don't know. It's just been good. And it's a real loose chili of a movie. They just needed a little bit more cornstarch to tighten things up a little bit. You know what I'm saying?
It needed something. But I'm glad it exists. I'm not upset that it exists.
No, I'm glad we could talk about it because it belongs in the podcast.
Oh, yeah. It has its pretty dark place. Now
it has its pretty dark place, not for the reasons anybody would have expected, but definitely uncomfortable for sure. But, you know, let us know if you think we hit the mark or if you think that we're wrong and we should have appreciated the movie for what it was.
And DMs if you need to.
You know, maybe everybody who grew up with this movie is going, exactly, you nailed it. The tone's weird. The king is a creep.
I wouldn't give us that much credit.
You know, Flip's a pedophile. Like who, I don't know, you know. And also, you know, Camille, like, dude, these characters, if these are Dreamland characters, are they not immortal? If this is a separate world apart from the human world where Nemo lives, are these not ancient beings? This is King Morpheus we're talking about.
I guess.
This is a god. Camille is a goddess.
I guess. I have a hard time seeing it that way.
Creepy. Super creepy. I'm just so tired. I'm so tired. All right.
We've reached
the end. Now I'm just going to
the boiling point here
to the script. All right. In conclusion, I just want to talk about the reception of the movie and some of the aftermath and the legacy and things that we get to have now because of the movie, but also just Little Nemo as a whole. The film reviews were tepid at best. The nicest thing Roger Ebert could say was that it was interesting. And although I've never been a fan of critics, I do agree with him that it's not a great film. Mm-hmm. But I think that has everything to do with its tumultuous production story, which is what we keep saying over and over again. Mm-hmm. It could have been great. It should have been. It had everything it needed to be great, only it had too much of it. Mm-hmm. As with most of the films we've covered, it bombed at the box office. The budget ended up being about $35 million in total, but it only grossed about a third of that. The ironic thing is that this probably had a lot to do with another movie that was a massive box office hit that same summer, Studio Ghibli's fourth film, Kiki's Delivery Service, written and directed by Hayao Miyazaki.
Whoops.
Yeah.
Fumbled that bag.
He really got his revenge on this movie. Mm-hmm. I forget the quote. He said that this production was like the worst experience he's ever had.
Damn, and he really rebounded. So
he really bounced back. He was like, I'm an actual genius.
I aspire to rebound like Miyazaki.
Let's all aspire to rebound like Miyazaki. Sadly, the film's failure seemed to break Fujioka's spirit. He took full responsibility for the studio's losses, gave up his rights to any of it, and retired from the animation industry.
Poor guy.
He tried so hard. I feel so bad for this guy.
Damn.
You say that they threw everything they had at it. He did. He literally did. Mm-hmm. And when it failed, he was just devastated. He was done.
I get it. I mean, what do you do?
I don't know. But he may have given up too soon, though, because in March of 1993, Little Nemo was released on VHS by Hemdale Home Video. This sold over 1.5 million copies and became the number 4 best-selling children's title that same year, and has maintained a strong cult following ever since.
VHS saved so many movies.
It didn't release on DVD until 2004, after which it has been re-released by different companies over the years multiple times. And despite poor Fujioka's resignation, TMS has done all right for itself. It's kept a low profile, but it's still alive today, and it's developed pieces of animation for a few very famous productions, including Inspector Gadget, Heathcliff, The Real Ghostbusters, Dennis the Menace, DuckTales, Alf the Animated Series, Spider-Man the Animated Series, Superman the Animated Series, Batman the Animated Series, Tiny Toon Adventures, The Original Animaniacs, and Gargoyles, among literally dozens of others. Most recently, they're working on Rick and Morty the anime. Mm-hmm. And we've had a few folks on Instagram say that they had the Little Nemo video game.
Yes.
From 1990.
Very popular.
Which was called Little Nemo, the Dream Master. Or in Japan, it was called Pajama Hero Nemo.
It's a new nickname for Phoebe.
Pajama Hero Phoebe?
Yeah. It's my cat, if you don't know.
This was developed for the NES by Capcom, which also released an arcade game simply called Nemo that same year. The funny thing here is that the year in question is 1990, right? 2 years before the American release.
Which
so
is
all these American kids are playing this game.
Kids remember the game.
No idea it's based on a movie
but that's why
that they're
so
about
many
to
American
see.
Kids that talk to us remember the game more than the movie because they played the game first.
Right. And may or may not have ever seen the movie.
Right.
Just liked the game. Right. And the game sounds cool, and I want one of the DVDs with the original proofs of concept on it. But what I'm most interested in is the Little Nemo merch. Rand McNally published a children's storybook in 1941. Blackthorn Publishing released a selection of Little Nemo issues in 3D in 1987, complete with 3D glasses. In 1996, Stewart, Tabori, and Chang sold a set of 30 Little Nemo postcards. And in addition to the regular VHS in 1993, Hemdale also sold a collector's edition, complete with VHS, an illustrated storybook, and the soundtrack on cassette. And in 2001, Dark Horse Comics released a Little Nemo 10 lunchbox that came with a little statue of Nemo in pajamas, holding a lit taper candle.
In the 80s, you weren't anybody if you didn't get yourself on a lunchbox.
I mean, yeah, this was 2001, but yes, same rules apply.
Oh.
But dude, I want all of it. I want all of that. And if you have an extra of any of that, please send it to us.
Oh my God.
But I'll leave our listeners with one question. What is Slumberland? Is it a figment of one of Nemo's very elaborate dreams? Or was Nemo invited to reign over Slumberland because he's a very elaborate dreamer? Who's to say? Not me. That's up to y'all. I'm done. It's almost 1 a.m. and I'm ready to go to bed. So.
Oh, guys, if you only knew. I think it's an interesting idea that Nemo's just somehow the best dreamer of all the dreamers. But with the history and reputation that you have shared with us thus far in this series, I'll allow it.
Yeah, I don't know, because they do say no one's ever, rejected an invitation before. Mm-hmm. So they're implying in this movie that there have been others before Nemo.
Is it a Jareth situation where they bring the babies into the kingdom?
Could be.
Maybe they find maybe the boops are previous attempts at the heir to the throne.
It's possible. It's possible. Or they just find a new kid each night who needs a little self-assurance, and they give him this grand adventure that he can either,
perhaps
muck up or, just do the right thing in the first place and dance until dawn. Dance until you die!
Dance until you
As
die.
Winifred would say.
Man,
I can't wait for spooky season. We are officially 6 months
and now you're
from spooky season, guys. I can't wait. It is my birthday month. Don't want to be 33, but happy to be halfway to Halloween.
Happy birthday month to you.
Thanks. Appreciate that. Mm-hmm. That's all I got.
Thanks, guys, for being here. Thanks for keeping us afloat as we floated through Slumberland.
Woof.
We appreciate you so much.
Just floating through.
As always, you can find us on our social media at That's Pretty Dark Podcast on Instagram, at That's Pretty Dark on TikTok for the time being until they ban it.
Any day now. Can't wait.
You can email us at that'sprettydarkpodcast@gmail.com if you have commentary on this episode or any other, or just want to share your childhood darknesses, memories, thoughts, nightmares, dreams with us. We are always grateful and excited to hear from you.
Yeah, buddy.
And if you liked this for some reason and you want more of it, you can find us on Patreon at patreon.com/TPD podcast.
Yeah.
Would you believe it's almost 1 a.m?
I do. I can feel it. Well, if we haven't said it enough, thanks for listening, guys. And we'll catch you next time.
Cannot wait to be back in your ears.
It's going to be a good time. Keep it spooky, y'all. Dream big, just hop on that dirigible. Dirigible.
Dirigible.
It's been so long.
Inimitable. Goodbye and good night.
Eat the princess's cookies.
Oh my God.
Hug a boomp.
Thanks for listening to That's Pretty Dark, written and produced by Christian Baxter Mott and Kaylin Andrews.
Our music is composed by Jonathan Simmons, and our art is provided by Paige Garland at Power Girl Illustration.
Join the collective nostalgia and follow us on Facebook and Instagram at That's Pretty Dark Podcast.
Share your experiences and let us know what shows, films, or villains still haunt you from childhood at that'sprettydarkpodcast@gmail.com. Remember, you're never really alone.
So until next time, sweet dreams, everyone.